Chapter 270. Han Dong, who passed the elite training with excellent results, had no need to participate in the final exam at the end of the first semester of university. The holidays came. Han Dong still took the time to go home and check on Nina and his mother. Because of Han Dong, Nina also received better treatment in the machinery workshop. Because of Koslin, Nina was now transferred to a more advanced machinery workshop for internship. Once she could pass the novice space, she would immediately become an official mechanical apprentice. Nina was prepared to wait for another half a year to make a set of hidden exoskeleton armor before going to the novice space. Han Dong's life was slightly boring. If he was not studying the mechanism between G-virus and fungi in the fungus laboratory in the old sewer, he was reading and learning books in the secret room in the stargazing room. It was necessary to explain the learning situation of the books. During the training, Han Dong had absorbed enough outside the city from the bodies of the Stewart cadres with the absorption function of the tentacles. However, it was more difficult to perfect little magic eye than expected. Han Dong spent a full 3 months and completely completed the learning of the first book during the summer vacation. Little magic eye could now completely perform all the basic functions described in the first volume. The most important point, Han Dong could finally read the second volume of the books normally. Compared to a little bit of everything, it was mainly about the basic learning of the books. The second volume was a real volume that could allow little magic eye to obtain real abilities. The second print volume. The title alone attracted Han Dong, and he immediately became addicted to reading. However, the situation was a little strange. He only read for 15 minutes. A tingling sensation in his eyes flashed, and a drop of blood dripped along his face onto the book. It pulled Han Dong out of his immersion. The entire little magic eye was bloodshot and even oozed blood, and its visual ability was greatly weakened. Such a situation scared Han Dong, and he immediately closed his eyes to ask Mr. Black and White. The result was that he overused his eyes and would be fine after a few days of rest. The reason was simple. The difficulty of reading each scroll was increasing. Reading high-level characters with internal seals would put a huge burden on the eyes. In this way, Han Dong's reading time could not exceed 10 minutes a day. The rest of the time, he would have to comprehend the content on his own based on what he had read in those 10 minutes. Han Dong felt like he had touched upon a whole new realm after reading the pupil imprint scroll. However, if one wanted to cultivate this scroll, the basic requirements would far surpass the Li-Fi scroll. The basic requirements are as follows. 1. A large amount of life essence from outside the city, especially essence. 2. Individual brain domain levels. It requires the seed in Han Dong's brain to fully germinate, which can provide an endless supply of energy. The faceless head also needs to be upgraded to LV. 3. To generate and control the pupil seal. Once the pupil seal was formed, according to the description in the book, Han Dong could disintegrate low-level life forms with a single stare. In this way, Han Dong would then have to put the little magic eyes upgrade, the head's upgrade, the seed break, and the weight increase together. The growth path was far more than the average trainee knight, but it also required more effort and cost. A stronger evil eye, more limbs, more anomalies, and a mysterious talent tree. When he thought of this, Han Dong had to try his best to shorten the time he slept and put all his energy into learning. Of course, in addition to learning, with the help of Mr. Black and White, the supply channel had been successfully opened. It was impossible to make money in the early stage. The experimental area still needed a lot of materials and time to rebuild. Han Dong directly took out all the 1,500 copper coins he received from the training and used it to buy basic materials. The brand new laboratory was slowly being perfected according to the blueprint drawn by the doctor. Finally, there was the matter of Mia. Mia naturally pestered Han Dong whenever she had the chance. During this period, she made a total of 7 different requests, but they were all rejected by Han Dong as infringing on his own interests. And Mia was not willing to just sleep with him for one night to offset the requests. Thus, he still hadn't been able to make this request. The summer vacation was over. Han Dong's newbie label was torn off. He was now a second-year student in the Mystic Academy. In another month, the cool-down of fate points would be over. The Clown's Resurrection, Inner Chapter. He had to wait until he broke the seed and became an official knight before he could choose. Therefore, Han Dong was about to face the Fate Realm, which was completely unknown. He just had to follow Mr. Black and White's request, and the difficulty had to be above 4-star, seed stage. Before entering, Han Dong had to be fully prepared. Therefore, during his free time, Han Dong made a trip to the mechanical engineering department. He walked through the various mechanical workshops and came to the underground blacksmith area in the depths of the academy. The blacksmith area was very special. Even mechanical apprentices were not allowed to enter. Only highly talented apprentices who were born with the talent of blacksmithing and obtained a pass were allowed to enter. The full name of the blacksmith area was Underground Furnace Fortress. It was like the Dead Water Swamp in the Mystic Academy, but the Underground Furnace Fortress was more significant. It involved the forging of equipment and the top blacksmith skills in the Holy City. The manager here was Miss Wen Li's master. Even though he was not just a nominal professor in the Mechanical Academy, his real reputation was the same as the dean, or even higher. Few people could see the real face of this old blacksmith. Han Dong, as an external student, could go to the Underground Furnace Fortress, naturally because he had an appointment. Deputy Captain. It had been a few months. Wen Li was still exactly the same as before. She had wheat-colored skin and well-defined muscles. She was wearing a black vest that was completely soaked in sweat. She had a fiery red ponytail and revealed an extremely rare, innocent smile in the doomsday. Wen Li, long time no see. Han Dong took the initiative to meet Wen Li mainly for two things. The first was the forging. Han Dong had some very good materials, all of which came from outside the city. He wanted to see if Wen Li could forge a suitable equipment for him. The Arabian ghoul nail that was pulled out from the Great Lord's body, as well as the black feather that was taken from the Chroman Elder. The materials are not bad. What does Deputy Captain want to forge? A lightweight body armor. Although Han Dong was strengthened by the G-Virus, it was mainly in his right arm. His body's regenerative ability was limited to 110% of his right arm. If he was seriously injured, it would be impossible to recover. Han Dong couldn't guarantee that he would be unscathed in every battle, so it was necessary for him to have a top-grade armor that fit his body. Okay, Deputy Captain, come down with me first. We will go to the blacksmith room to discuss the details. Chapter 271. Underground Furnace Fortress, walking down the metal stairs. In an instant, the temperature of over 50 degrees Celsius hit his face. Large amounts of lava flowed in the furnace fortress. Its scale was not something the blacksmith area in the manor could compare to. It was on a completely different level. The lava flowing here was enough to reach the level of a river. About 100 black iron pillars were formed from the bottom of the lava, connecting to the top of the furnace fortress and supporting this underground area. Dang, dang, dang. The sound of hammering echoed in the air. There were about 10,000 muscular blacksmiths wearing leather aprons, hammering away at the metal with their respective iron drills. The moment Han Dong stepped in, he was shocked by the scale of the underground furnace fortress. At a glance, he could not see the end of the lava flow. The black iron pillars continued to extend. Such a grand project. Although Han Dong was a cytologist, he could imagine how much effort was put into building this furnace fortress. This furnace fortress was like an important organ of the Holy City. This scale, it feels like the furnace fortress has exceeded the boundaries of the school. Moreover, many of the blacksmiths below are not apprentice knights, right? Wen Li explained, Yes. Vice Captain is right. The furnace fortress does not completely belong to the school. Its overall area is almost half of the second floor. Other than being a learning area for us blacksmiths, it is also an important military base of the Holy City. Blacksmiths who have obtained the Forging Qualification Certificate will come to the Furnace Fortress and contribute to the Holy City's industry. All the equipment produced by the Holy City comes from here. So it's like this. Wen Li, Is your blacksmith room far away? It's not far. I am in the area covered by the school. It is because of my master that I can get a private blacksmith shop. After all, most of the people doing this job are men. I often meet people who harass me. Although I can send them flying with a punch, it still affects my studies. Having my own room, I can avoid these factors. It's normal. Wen Li's appearance was not bad. It could even be said that she was above average. Moreover, although her muscles were not beautiful, they were still curvy. When it came to development, Wen Li was not bad at all. Han Dong could see that Wen Li was wrapping her upper body with bandages to minimize her characteristics as much as possible to reduce the burden on her body during the forging period. In a place where the ratio of men to women was 5,000, it would be strange if they weren't harassed. Han Dong covered his whole body with the doctor's bird's beak costume to avoid unnecessary trouble. However, as he followed Wen Li, he could still sense a large number of hostile gazes. For example, as a university student, you happen to know a girl who is studying physics or mechanics. During class, you should be able to understand Han Dong's current feelings when you deliberately go to the classroom to chat intimately with this girl. A group of muscular men could pounce on her at any time. Han Dong was on guard the entire time. He had a feeling that there was going to be a huge battle. Soon, they arrived at Wen Li's blacksmith room. The arc-shaped structure of the building covered an area of more than 20 square meters. The exterior was made up of a metal cover and iron nails, and a symbolic metal chimney was merged with the blacksmith's room. A long key had to be used to turn the hydraulic valve to open the door. The moment the iron door opened, a wave of heat rushed over. Because there was a furnace inside, the temperature in Wen Li's blacksmith room was close to 70 degrees Celsius. If it wasn't for the crow costume isolating the temperature, Han Dong's body wouldn't be able to withstand such a high temperature, and most of the plague in his body would have died. Wen Li, you live here every day? Yes. Master doesn't let me live in the dormitory, and the daily tasks of forging and studying are very heavy. Living here saves more time. If it was an ordinary student, they wouldn't be able to withstand such an extreme environment. Moreover, as Wen Li's room, there were no decorations that a young girl should have, but there were many shields and weapons hanging on the wall. In the corner, there was an iron brick bed without any cushions, which was Wen Li's bed. Thinking back to Wen Li's special background, when she was a baby, her father handed her to her current master, and she probably started helping him in the blacksmith room when she was 5 years old. Looking at Wen Li's cute and innocent smile, Han Dong actually felt a little emotional. Wen Li, Vice Captain, did your master mention it? What does he plan to send you to the Destiny Realm? Speaking of this, Wen Li immediately looked a little embarrassed. Actually, I originally wanted to talk to Vice Captain about this matter. Master wants me to participate in the Destiny Realm next time, which is a month later. I don't know if Vice Captain is free. Just in time. Wen Li didn't understand the meaning of just in time at first, but after a while, she excitedly hugged Han Dong. Crack! With such a light hug, Han Dong felt as if his shoulder blade was dislocated. I'm sorry, it's okay. Han Dong used the fungus to immediately restore the dislocated bone. Vice Captain, who else is in our team? It's not decided yet. I'll go ask my old friends. If the timing doesn't match, I'll contact Captain Abel, or I'll ask Mia to join us. It's best to form a team of 4. Okay. Vice Captain, you can arrange it. I'll do my best to help. Wen Li directly bowed at a 90 degrees angle. There were even tears in her eyes. Due to her master's decision, Wen Li had never officially entered the Destiny Realm. Plus, she was a coward. As time passed, she even became afraid of the Destiny Realm that was filled with evil spirits. Now, with Han Dong taking her to experience it for the first time, most of the fear in Wen Li's heart disappeared. That's right. Let's talk about Vice Captain's equipment first. No rush. Han Dong suddenly opened his little magic eye. After carefully inspecting every corner of the blacksmith's room and confirming that no one was eavesdropping, he asked Wen Li about the second matter, which was also the most important matter. Wen Li, do you still remember the Crowmen? Of course I remember. Han Dong handed a detailed information page about the Crowmen to Wen Li, Can you design and create a suitable equipment according to the crowman's physical characteristics? External, embedded, or exoskeleton equipment can be used. Crowmen. I don't have any experience in this area. I'll have to look at it in detail, but if it's Vice Captain's request, I'll do my best to fulfill it. Okay, try to come up with the most suitable equipment for the crowmen. If I think it's good, I'll try to create it in batches. At this time, a scorching hot aura leaked out from the gap in the door. Someone came, and it seemed to be angry. Chapter 272. The blacksmith's room involved Lee's personal privacy. It was sealed with a multi-layer hydraulic door. But now, there was a high-temperature gas seeping in through the door gap. The edge of the door was even completely burned red in a short time. If the door was not opened, the whole door might melt. Lee quickly turned the hydraulic valve to open the door. A heat wave mixed with anger kept invading the room like a tide, scaring Han Dong so much that he took a step back. Standing outside the door was an old blacksmith with a thick brown beard. Because the beard on his face was too dense, it needed to be tied into a beard braid. This beard style, coupled with a big hooked nose and a height of only 3 meters, was very similar to the dwarves in the fantasy movies Han Dong had seen when he was alive. Right now, the old blacksmith's big nose was red with anger. There was even a kind of high-temperature steam constantly coming out of his nostrils. Not for anything else, but because the old blacksmith spies in the underground furnace castle told him that his most beloved female disciple had just brought an unidentified man from the outer court into her private blacksmith room. After all, Winley had never brought any man into her private room in her entire life. Even if it involved some necessary things, such as difficulties in forging, Winley would only discuss with others in class or in the public blacksmith area. She would never bring any opposite sex to her blacksmith room. As soon as he heard that Winley brought a man back, the old blacksmith was so angry that he directly pushed aside the important business in his hands and immediately rushed back to the underground furnace castle. He wanted to see which little bastard had the guts to come to his territory and openly seduce the female disciple that he doted on the most. Blacksmith's grip the moment the hydraulic door opened. The old blacksmith's eyes were fierce as he stared at the audacious man from the outer court. He raised his hand and squeezed. A dark red 5-finger mark appeared directly on Han Dong's neck. The bird-beak doctor outfit could not withstand the grip and heat, and the head area covered by it automatically retracted, revealing Han Dong's very ordinary, even yellowish and thin face. This kind of grip that could squeeze space and gravity easily lifted Han Dong in the air. The neck area was twisted and completely suffocated, and there was a smell of barbecue. The skin on the neck area was completely burned. "Master, no!" Winley panicked. Without thinking at all, Winley stepped forward and used the same blacksmith's grip to firmly grab her master's arm to stop him. "Winley Austin, you actually went against me for a man." "Master, you've misunderstood. This is the student Nicholas that I mentioned to you before, the only student of the Crow Prophet." Upon hearing the word crow, a hint of fear flashed in the old blacksmith's eyes, and he completely relaxed his right hand. "Ha!" Han Dong fell heavily to the ground. Han Dong's neck area was severely burned, but fortunately, his cervical vertebrae and trachea were intact. Breathing in fresh air eased Han Dong's extreme suffocation. Under the stimulation of the G-virus to the cells, the burned area was slowly repaired. Just now, Han Dong really felt a sense of death. If Winley did not act in time, Han Dong would release Tugu to buy time. "The way you greet me for the first time is really special." Han Dong, who was lying on the ground, could only raise his head weakly and stare at the old blacksmith at the blacksmith's door. He could confirm his identity at a glance. Lee's master, the main person in charge of the underground furnace fortress. His identity and position were even higher than the mechanic department dean. The old blacksmith stared at Han Dong, who was lying limp on the ground, and his anger could not be quelled. "The student of the Stinky Crow? The student that you mentioned before? The one who led your team to obtain a high number of points during the elite training?" "Of course. Also, Nicholas saved me before. Originally, We agreed to meet today during the training. I plan to help him make a personal armor, and the materials are here. Master, you're too much. Wenli pointed at the ghoul's nail and black feather. Immediately, Wenli did not care about her master's opinion. She was even very angry at her master's actions. She jogged to Han Dong's side, picked him up horizontally, and placed him on the iron bed that she usually slept on. Master, you're really too much this time. Vice Captain is very good to me. If it wasn't for him, I would have died in the castle. Due to Wen Li's personality, she usually did not resist her master. No matter how difficult the forging request was, she would complete it on time. However, it was different this time. Wen Li was really angry. Wen Li? This scene caused the old blacksmith to be somewhat surprised. He did not know what to do. Wen Li had been brought up by him since she was young. At first, it was because of an old friend's request and Wen Li's unique constitution. Slowly, as Wen Li grew up, the old blacksmith even developed feelings similar to that of a granddaughter. Because the old blacksmith did not marry or have children, he had always been alone, and he had a fiery temper. Every time he thought of Wen Li getting married when she grew up, he would become angry. He was especially sensitive when it came to Wen Li's contact with the opposite sex. Currently, seeing Wen Li, who had not resisted him for more than 10 years, looking at him with disdain and anger, the old blacksmith immediately became terrified. However, as the owner of the underground furnace, he naturally had to maintain some face. I was just testing him. Since he's Crow's student, this kind of small injury won't kill him. Here's a bottle of highly effective medicine. Wen Li, move aside. I'll feed him. The old blacksmith naturally did not allow his granddaughter to have any excessive intimate actions with Han Dong. In order to not make Wen Li angry, he personally fed Han Dong the medicine. His actions seemed intimate. In fact, he was about to poke the medicine tube into Han Dong's throat. And the old blacksmith's face also had a terrifying half-smile. However, this kind of high-value medicine was still very effective. The injury on Han Dong's neck was immediately healed. Greetings to the great blacksmith, Hedragamon. Yes, I've heard Wen Li mention you in advance. Thank you for taking care of Wen Li during the training. You don't mind what happened just now, right? I didn't think it through. I didn't mention this to Senior in advance. You're quite polite. During the conversation, the old blacksmith would occasionally glance at his obedient disciple. Wen Li still had an angry expression and did not want to look at him at all. Cough, cough, cough. How about this? Considering that you took care of my disciple during the training, I'll personally complete your forging request. Thank you, Senior. Han Dong was naturally unhappy, but he pretended to be very polite on the surface. Since the old blacksmith wanted to help, Han Dong would not decline or refuse. Your physical condition is too poor. You're relying on internal things to support yourself. I guess you should be in urgent need of a light armor that doesn't affect your movement, right? Yes, the material is not bad, but if you want to forge a perfect soft armor, you still lack some necessary things. I'll reluctantly add it for you. A small piece of steel that was flowing with white light like liquid was directly thrown into the furnace by the blacksmith. There was no need to design a blueprint in advance. The forging began immediately. Chapter 273. Han Dong understood from Mr. Black and White and his conversation with Wen Li. As long as the materials were complete, Destiny equipment and Chaos equipment could be created through forging. Moreover, the quality of the finished equipment was not necessarily worse than the finished equipment. It could even be made according to one's own needs. Of course, there was an additional step in the process of forging, which required the hiring of a skilled blacksmith. This was also why Knight Cass used all his points to exchange for materials when he completed the clown's resurrection form. Ghoul's fingernails and black feathers were taken from creatures outside the city. The armor that was forged was naturally classified as Chaos equipment. Kid, the quality of the Chaos equipment that you forge will increase by a small level to Excellent Plus when combined with my forging skills and the intermediate materials that I use. The pollution that the equipment carries will also increase by a level. Can you afford to use it? Yes. The old blacksmith did not say anything more. He actually hoped that Han Dong would put on this highly polluted armor and enter the Destiny realm as soon as possible. While encountering danger, he would also be contaminated and would die without a doubt. Once Han Dong died, his good disciple would not be in danger of being kidnapped. About half an hour later, the old blacksmith used a unique inlay method to stick the last feather on the surface of the armor. Caw, caw, caw. Creak, creak. The sound of crow cawing and fingernails scratching could be heard in the blacksmith room at the same time. On the surface of the finished armor, the image of a crow wrapped in white bones appeared. The entire body exuded a strong black and foul aura. Sound appearance. The appearance of both represented a near-perfect forging, which fully displayed the potential of the forging materials. Wow! Wenli was also surprised. If she was the one forging, there would only be one phenomenon at most. Take it. A piece of black feather soft armor was thrown into Han Dong's hands. When Han Dong caught the soft armor, his eyes widened in surprise. He did not dare to imagine such a comfortable and unique touch, as well as the almost weightless feeling. So light, it felt like he was tightly holding a pile of light feathers. But in fact, the structure of the soft armor is very complicated. It is divided into 3 layers: the outer feather layer, the nail layer, and the inner layer of liquid silver. The Arabian ghoul fingernails have been finely cut by the old blacksmith into 4 by 4 centimeters pieces. Together with a unique liquid metal, they were able to perfectly fit Han Dong's body without affecting his movements. As for the inner layer and the flowing metal with an inlaid function, the price itself is very high, and it is very difficult to control and forge. Only senior blacksmiths can control this metal. Although he had only used it a little, it had improved the overall quality of Han Dong's armor. Han Dong could be considered to have picked up a huge bargain. The old blacksmith urged, "Hurry up and try it on. If there are any inconsistencies, we can still make some minor adjustments." Han Dong immediately took off his coat. Not far away, Wenli also reached out to cover her eyes, but her fingers were slightly open as she peeked at the vice captain's body. Wenli's worldview was different from the average person's. Growing up in the underground furnace fortress, what she saw the most was lava, iron diamonds, and muscular men. Wenli had long been tired of seeing all kinds of muscular blacksmiths. Now, looking at Han Dong's thin and weak body, even his ribs could be clearly seen, she felt a kind of heartbeat. The old blacksmith himself had a deep understanding of the body. Staring at Han Dong's body, he was also a bit surprised. It was hard to imagine how such a young man who couldn't even compare to a normal person became an apprentice knight, and how he was chosen by Black and White. According to Wenli's description, this kid should be very special. When forging this corpse feather coat, I deliberately didn't add copper. In this way, the filth contained in the materials outside the city will be completely stimulated. Can your body withstand it? However, the next scene immediately shocked the old blacksmith. When Han Dong put the corpse feather coat on his body, the originally slightly bigger feather coat automatically attached to Han Dong's body and changed its length and size. On the surface, the crow prophet's feathers were slightly opened at a 30 degrees angle, and the magic contained in the feathers slightly emerged. The old blacksmith stared at Han Dong, who was completely unaffected by the pollution, and muttered, "The chaos equipment recognized itself as its owner? Where did this kid come from?" Han Dong poured all his energy into this feather coat. Such a comfortable, soft feeling coupled with a light feeling and a wonderful feeling of magic surrounding it. Before Han Dong brought the materials to Wenli, he didn't expect to have such an unexpected harvest. Although he couldn't see the equipment's related attributes, Han Dong estimated that this soft armor had high resistance, physical and magic, and it also had a defensive special effect. In this way, the preparation work before entering the Destiny space was more than half completed. Han Dong didn't care about the previous matter. Han Dong made a ceremonial bow. "Thank you, great blacksmith. This kind of low-level forging is just right for me to warm up. Since you're Wenli's friend, I won't pursue today's matter. Cough. Since you are just ordinary friends in the future, you still have to keep a certain distance." Wenli suddenly interrupted at this time. Master, in a month's Destiny event, I will team up with Nicholas. With him, I will find some senior female students to take you there. No, I have already promised the vice captain. Wen Li's rejection once again gave the old blacksmith a double blow. He was so angry that he hurriedly covered his chest as his blood rushed up. I'm too lazy to care about you. The old blacksmith was so angry that he needed to find a place to vent, but he regretted it as soon as he stepped out of the blacksmith room. When he thought of the good disciple he painstakingly raised, leaving him with someone else, he almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. Nicholas, yes. The old blacksmith turned his head. His eyes seemed to be flowing with lava. You have to treat my disciple well. I will definitely bring Wenli back safely. Also, senior, please don't worry. I don't have any improper thoughts about Wenli classmate. We are just classmates and partners. Okay. The old blacksmith left. Wenli stood at the side. Her front teeth slightly clenched her lips. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Wenli, after the team is formed, I will contact you. In the remaining month, you can consider doing actual combat training. At least from the last group training, you have enough strength, but you lack experience. If you can't find a training partner, you can come to the mystery division to find me. Okay. Thank you, Vice Captain. Also, Master's temper has always been like this. Please don't blame him. No, I can't thank you enough. Finally, regarding the Crowman armor, I will have to trouble you. Okay. Chapter 274. A month's time was still very short. Regarding the matter of recruiting teammates for fate events, the first person Han Dong thought of was naturally his old flame, Cass Maldini. However, when Han Dong sent a message to Cass, he did not receive a reply. Therefore, Han Dong personally went to Maldini's mansion to ask about Cass' whereabouts. From his father, Cass seemed to have been selected as an advanced talent by the Academy after the training and was sent to an unknown area for an unconventional special training. The Crusader was like the strongest shield of the Holy City. When the knights were deployed, most of the knights who major in the Crusader were the captains of the various squads and had to fight against the polluted life. Therefore, the Crusader Academy's training of students had many unique aspects. The unconventional special training that Cass participated in seemed to be to stimulate his potential and increase his resistance to pollution. It would take at least 3 months. Since that was the case, Han Dong could only choose someone else. Han Dong first contacted 2 people, the grandson of Captain Keeman, Abel Lane, and the little magician, Demps Martin. Abel agreed without hesitation. However, Demps rejected. The reason was simple. Han Dong's presence would greatly reduce the difficulty of fate events and would lead the plan and method of exploring the realm of fate. Demps was also a person who liked to lead. Being in the same team as Han Dong was too boring and unsatisfying. In addition, during the conversation with Dempus, the faint sounds of the opposite sex could be heard from the other side of the phone. It seemed that he was giving a certain senior teacher a unique massage. Finally, Han Dong still chose Mia Semenovich, who pestered him every day as his 4th teammate. His unique curse ability might be able to play an unexpected role. Time passed in the blink of an eye. In the old sewers, Han Dong, who was carrying out the plague inoculation, received a letter. The letter was not signed. The content was also encrypted with a unique secret code. The sender was Dr. Swollen from outside the city. Every 2 weeks, he would report to Han Dong about the reconstruction of the laboratory and the required materials. I estimate that by the time I come out of the Destiny realm alive, the brand new laboratory will be completed. I've already borrowed 800 coppers from my teacher, so I need to quickly set up and run the production line. The consumption of resources was greater than Han Dong had expected. Since it was difficult for him to borrow money from Mr. Black and White, he could only find his first mentor, Pasha Bahart, who was always drunk. However, ever since Lecturer Pasha came back from the last expedition, she had changed a lot. He seemed to have suffered a great blow and began to cultivate in seclusion. He had locked himself in a secret epidemic room that even Han Dong had no right to enter for a long time. There was no telling what kind of training he was doing. On average, it would come out once every 3 days. Moreover, every time she crawled out of the secret room, Lecturer Pasha's body would emit a terrible stench. Her messy hair was full of various poisonous mushrooms or large parasites. Occasionally, she could barely crawl out of the secret room because of excessive cultivation. She could only let Han Dong help her clean her body. Once in a while, Han Dong inquired about the cause of the incident. Although the knights that Pasha followed completed the mission, they suffered a fatal blow. A good friend of hers had died in front of her, and even she had almost lost her life. Pasha, who survived, had a great psychological change during the hospitalization. After returning to the old sewer, she tried to improve herself in a short time and prepared to enter the Destiny realm at the night level. It was the same today. Pasha was still cultivating in the secret room. Han Dong had to leave a note and left the old sewer. They would go to the bell tower tomorrow. On the last day, Han Dong naturally had to gather the team members and prepare in advance. Who knew? Han Dong had just stepped out of the Dark Moon Tower. A crow flew and landed on Han Dong's shoulder, and the crow spoke in human language. Gather the members of your team and come to the stargazing room. Yes, Han Dong was delighted. Generally, at this time, Mr. Black and White must have something good to say to him. Han Dong sent a message to Abel and asked him to come over quickly. As for Wen Li, she was in the mystery department. Since Han Dong went to the furnace fort to forge the corpse feather armor, he mentioned to Wen Li that she should strengthen the combat practice in the remaining month. As a result, Wen Li came to Han Dong the next day. She said that most of the people she knew were muscular men, and the combat practice of physical combat was not very meaningful to the evil spirits and ghosts in the Destiny realm. Han Dong needed to practice Volume 2, Pupil Seal, every day, and did not have much time to accompany Wen Li. He arranged for her to go to the stagnant water swamp and tried to use Mia as a sparring partner. Who knew? This arrangement was truly incredible. Wen Li and Mia had worked together during the training, and the two immediately became familiar with each other. A pure and kind person like Wen Li would never guess Mia's nature, and she could get along well with anyone. The relatively lonely Mia also immediately became friends with her. Wen Li would come to the stagnant water swamp almost every 2 to 3 days. Because Wen Li had been taking a lot of leave recently, the old blacksmith personally came to the mystery department to catch her. This alarmed the higher-ups of the mystery department, including Mr. Black and White. Even the professors were wary of this old blacksmith. After knowing that Wen Li was practicing combat with a partner of the same sex, the old blacksmith left with peace of mind. However, he secretly planted spies in the mystery department to monitor Wen Li's situation at all times. Stagnant water swamp, witch academy, training room. Through Mia's exquisite control over the joints of the human body, she used multiple layers of tough spider silk to bind and bind Wen Li's joints, completely binding her. 4 spider legs pressed down and immediately suppressed Wen Li. No matter how strong Wen Li was, she could not break free. Mia stuck out a slender purple-black tongue from her mouth and gently licked Wen Li's face. Sister Wen Li, you're so cute. Be careful of such situations. Don't think that you can solve everything with brute force just because you're strong. I know, Sister Mia. At this moment, Han Dong pushed the door open and entered. He happened to see Mia, who had just absorbed the spider legs into her body, riding on Wen Li's body. Due to the high temperature during the battle, most of Mia's clothes were burned, and her slender figure was completely exposed. Meanwhile, Wen Li was professionally tied to the ground and could not move at all. She looked like she was being toyed with by Mia. Such a scene stunned Han Dong for a long time. I'll wait for you outside. After a while, Han Dong led the 2 girls from the swamp area to the Dark Moon Tower. After meeting up with Abel, they went to the stargazing room together. Wen Li's face was flushed because of the misunderstanding. Mia's personality was like that. She beat Wen Li at her own game and hugged her the whole time. She even took the initiative to make some ambiguous movements. As for Abel, he was not in the mood the whole time. He held an exquisite gift box in his hand. Because he was about to officially meet Mr. Black and White, fluffy white hair grew out of his pores. He looked very nervous. Chapter 275. Today's stargazing room was different from usual. The alternating black and white design made it look more like a modern villa from Han Dong's previous world. The stargazing room can be changed according to Mister's wishes. Everyone, follow me. Han Dong led the team through the alternating black and white hallway and up the spiral staircase to the second floor. At the master's seat, at the gray marble table, Mr. Black and White sat upright, a friendly smile on his mask. Just as everyone was taking their seats, Abel suppressed his nervousness and handed the exquisite gift box in his hands to Mr. Black and White. "Mister, this is the gift that grandfather asked me to bring to you." Today was the first time Abel had met Mr. Black and White, and the first time he had come to the most mysterious area in the academy, the stargazing room. His nervousness and excitement made the white hair on Abel's body stand up slightly. His hands were intertwined at his lower abdomen, his fingernails rubbing against each other. When the gift box opened, a beautiful rainbow light shot out. "Oh, origin form crystal. Captain Kai Ming is too polite. My grandfather has always wanted to meet Mister in private. Today, I'm here to talk about your matters, not mine. Sit down." The sudden change in Mister's tone scared Abel so much that he broke out in a cold sweat. He didn't say anything else unimportant and could only retreat to Han Dong's side, lowering his head slightly. It was obvious. Today, Mr. Black and White was much stricter than usual, as if he had something important to announce. My initial request to Nicholas was for him to choose at least a 4-star destiny event. 4-star. Winley immediately covered her mouth. She didn't expect the difficulty to be so high. "However, I've been thinking about it for a while. Since Nicholas has chosen you as his teammates, and you are the best of the best among this batch of apprentice knights, my request for you will be raised to a higher level." "What?" Even Han Dong himself was shocked. He thought that Mr. Black and White had summoned them to give them some important reminders or to help the team formulate a battle strategy. Who would have thought that the requirements would be raised even further? "Abel, you should have an unfriendly card of fate, right?" Abel was shocked. He didn't expect Mr. Black and White to know about this. He couldn't control his human-shaped ears well, and they turned into furry, triangular beast ears. "Yes." Then, Abel explained, "I don't intend to use this card. I'll just pretend I didn't get anything. It's not good to waste such a valuable card. Let's introduce the details of the card of fate to everyone. All right. Card of Fate, Scepter, effect, allows the fate event to be deeply altered. As long as the background and main storyline remain unchanged, the fate event will be completely altered and distorted. Side quests and hidden quests have undergone huge changes, may increase or decrease. Overall difficulty index has increased, but it will not exceed 5 stars, seed stage. An event-enhanced card of fate. Han Dong had suspected this a long time ago. Since the card of fate could give the owner the right to choose, would it also have the right to alter it? Wasn't it also a right to alter the basic level of a randomly selected fate event? This card is considered the most valuable card of fate for those of you who haven't broken through the seed stage. You must complete as many difficult fate events as possible before you become an official knight to maximize the benefits and strengthen your foundation. In this way, when you become an official knight, you will have a greater development, and your future path will be smoother. You should all understand the principle behind this. Understood. Abel naturally knew that the foundation was very important. He had to maximize the benefits while he was still in the seed stage. But it was only maximizing the benefits and not the difficulty. If he could fully decipher and explore a 3-star difficulty event, the rewards would definitely be higher than the rewards obtained from a 4-star event through normal means. Abel had also asked his grandfather about this card of fate that could increase the difficulty. Commander Keeman only maintained a neutral attitude. He didn't specifically recommend Abel to use it, but he didn't oppose it either. He only asked Abel to achieve maximizing the benefits in every event, so Abel didn't have any plans, but now Mr. Black and White took the initiative to mention it. Mr. Black and White looked directly at Abel and continued. Maximizing the benefits is indeed correct. But Abel, you didn't consider the real key point. Being stared at like this by Mr. Black and White, Abel felt like his thoughts were being completely peeped at. He was so scared that he folded his furry beast ears together. The Destiny Realm doesn't just give you points, credit points, and equipment. It also gives you something very important: danger. The real difficulty of the Destiny Realm brings no less danger to the participants than outside the city. When the real crisis comes, how many people can calmly deal with it? When the escape on the surface is completely blocked, how can you escape? Think carefully about what you were thinking and doing when you were being chased by the old king. That's right, when the old king suddenly appeared. The apprentice knights in the carriage lost 50% to 80% of their basic analytical ability. Moreover, the people in the carriage didn't think about how to survive at all. Instead, they placed their hopes on the behemoth knights, hoping that these seniors could protect them and escape. Only a few people were thinking and doing something that might be useful. Mr. Black and White continued. When the crisis comes, how to choose the most effective way to deal with it in an instant. This is an ability that you must learn in advance. You must get used to the crisis in advance. This will be one of the most important hidden abilities when you go out of the city to investigate in the future. Therefore, for you who are already at the top of your level, you must do your best to pass the most difficult Destiny Realm events and obtain the greatest benefits. Thank you for the advice, sir. Han Dong felt that this conversation was fruitful, and this card of fate was very interesting. That's all I have to say. It's up to you whether you want to accept it or not. Similarly, after hearing this, Abel's eyes became firm. Thank you for your advice, sir. I believe that grandfather will agree with you. Then that's all I have to say. Relax on the last day. Buy some necessary potions and items and make preparations. Mr. Black and White waved his hand, and everyone left the stargazing room. Chapter 276. Mr. Black and White's words made sense. However, the Destiny space itself was very dangerous. They needed to explore a completely unknown and unfamiliar world. If they were not careful, they could take the wrong path and fall into danger step by step. Currently, they needed to use the cards of destiny to increase the difficulty, so it was inevitable that everyone in the team was a little nervous. It was necessary to tell this to the people closest to them. After all, there was a certain possibility that they would die in there. Abel's behavior today was completely different from usual. Perhaps it was because he was too nervous to meet Mr. Black and White. He was not in the right state of mind the whole time. When they left the tower, Abel finally realized that he had lost his composure and quickly changed the folded beast ears back to their original form. He pretended to be a serious vice captain and said, "Cough, cough. I will take care of the necessary items and potions. I have to explain today's matter to my grandfather. See you guys tomorrow morning." Abel took out his white wolf from the beast pen and immediately returned to the behemoth knights. Similarly, when Lee's eyes were flickering. After all, this was her first time. I will go back and tell my master about this. I will also try my best to bring a small volume of high-efficiency solvent. I can repair or temporarily strengthen your equipment in the Destiny space. Well, Wenli, you have been training too much recently. Go back and sleep early today. Don't worry, I can still guarantee the most basic survival problems. Han Dong's words made Wenli relax a lot. She took out a mechanical horse from the beast pen. Just as Wenli was about to set off, a crow dangled a letter and handed it to Wenli. Caw, 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 caw. After 3 caws, it flew into the forest area. Han Dong quickly conveyed the crow's message. Mr. wants you to bring this letter to Master Blacksmith Headrake. Oh, okay. Once this letter was sent, Wenli's master would naturally be fine. Han Dong walked to the side of the mechanical horse and gently patted Wenli's strong back. Relax, I'm here. Nothing will happen. Okay. For a moment, Wenli's nervousness almost completely disappeared. A blush appeared on her face as she rode the horse back to the underground furnace fortress. Yo, Some people are quite good at picking up girls. I didn't expect you to like this kind of muscular girl. Mia teased him on purpose. However, Mia herself was not too jealous. These days, Mia and Wenli could be considered to have built up a good relationship. With such a pure and kind-hearted blacksmith as her younger sister, Mia seemed to be able to obtain some compliment of humanity from her. It's none of your business. Speaking of which, don't you need to report Mr. Black and White's decision to the witch? Mia suddenly stepped forward and hugged Han Dong's arm, her eyes revealing a kind of morbid look. What's the point of reporting? It's not like I'm afraid of high difficulty. If I could die together with you, Nicholas, it's pretty good too. Han Dong could only smile awkwardly. Then, Mia drew circles on Han Dong's chest with her fingernails. Since Abel is in charge of all the supplies, I'll leave them to you. It's the last day. Why don't we take a break? If you don't want to go to the tree house, we can go somewhere else for the night. Is this your request? Bah, don't think it's so easy. It's up to you whether you want to go or not. Han Dong suddenly thought of something. Mia, how about we go to the witch school? Why? Practice with me. I've been studying hard for so long. I want to try out the changes in my current physical condition and ability. No, if the practice is very effective, it's not impossible to accompany you for a night. Really? Well, the premise is that you have to achieve the effect I expect. Don't worry, I'll definitely satisfy you. Let's go. It just so happens that the teacher isn't home during this period. It seems that because the god of death returned to the city, he went upstairs for a meeting. The witch isn't here. Then wait. Han Dong sent an urgent message through the clockwork device on his wrist. Wait for what? Wait for an acquaintance who's similar to us to have an unconventional practice together. About 15 minutes later, a luxurious carriage drove into the dark moon forest and came to the intersection between the tower and the swamp. It was very rare to see a luxurious carriage like this with a permit for the whole area of the academy. Only some of the higher-ranked deputy directors had such a private carriage. Demps, wearing a single bronze mirror and a gray windbreaker, got off the carriage. Han Dong also caught a glimpse of a slender hand waving goodbye to Demps in the carriage. Demps was a real expert in this aspect. With his appearance and figure, as well as the unique finger technique in the Holy City, he could really do whatever he wanted in the academy. Not only the upper-class women, but ordinary female students would also be attracted by Demps's unique temperament and demeanor. However, Mia was not interested at all. Instead, she regarded this delicate Demps as a love rival. Brother Demps, I'm sorry for making you rush over. Han Dong politely greeted him. Demps showed a kind smile. To be able to practice in the mysterious witch school, this kind of opportunity is rare. I have to thank Brother Nicholas for inviting me. At the same time, he also greeted Mia, who was at the side. Mia, on the other hand, had an arrogant look on her face as she completely ignored this third party. Let's go. Demps, who set foot in the Deadwater Swamp for the first time, had no change in expression. Stepping on the swamp planks hanging from the twisted trees, he followed closely behind Han Dong. After a while, Demps's temperament attracted the attention of many witch apprentices. Various small tree houses cast interested gazes. Some witches covered in tattoos even climbed out of their tree houses to observe this delicate pretty boy up close. Brother Demps's charm is very high. Haha, a vice captain, don't laugh at me. However, this ability is very useful sometimes. Indeed, rowing the old wooden boat, they arrived at the witch school in the center of the swamp. When the witch was out, the school was completely closed. Only direct students like Mia had the qualifications to enter the school. Standing in the wet and vegetated area of the school, Demps could not help but spread his arms and feel the unique atmosphere here. The air is filled with the strong aura of a sorcerer. The effect of casting spells here is stronger than outside, and the energy consumption is also reduced. After saying that, Demps picked up a handful of soil. Rubbing the soil with his fingers, he scattered the soil into powder form in the air. A black mud shield with a skull on the surface formed in front of Demps. Mia was taken aback by this. You know witchcraft? Didn't I say it when I introduced myself? I know a little bit of everything. In terms of witchcraft, I'm naturally not as proficient as student Mia. Chapter 277. Although witchcraft and magic were related to each other in terms of origin, but their essence was completely different, and it required specialized learning and talent in this area to be able to cast witchcraft through a carrier. The witch apprentices living in the swamp were not able to cast witchcraft from the beginning. They often needed a long time to learn the basics, and during the learning period, there was the possibility of witchcraft backfiring at any time. However, as an outer court student, Demps could cast the witchcraft Black Mud Shield at will. Even though Mia looked calm on the surface, her heart was extremely shocked. If other people saw this, they might think that Demps was pursuing a secondary profession. But Han Dong could roughly guess the mystery. It was most likely related to Demps' sixth finger. Hearing that the witch wasn't here today, Han Dong had called Dempus over for an unconventional sparring session because of this. To a certain extent, Han Dong, Mia, and Demps belong to the same kind of people. How do we spar? Listening to Demps's question, he seemed to be a little impatient. Since returning from the training, Demps had made a lot of progress. He intended to take advantage of the current uninhabited environment to have a good, actual combat practice. And when facing Han Dong, who knew everything about him, Demps could use some skills that he could not normally see. I'll have a close combat with Mia first, then I'll have a long-range spar with you. Oh, okay. Demps created an earthen chair on the side of the field and carefully watched the first spar. Mia also seemed to be a little impatient. Because Han Dong had said this before, as long as she could satisfy him, he would accompany her for the night. Mia did not do anything fancy at all. She used her real strength from the beginning. She wanted to quickly end the spar and make more time for the two of them. Swish! With the purple-black curse wrapped around her body, for long spider legs suddenly grew out from her back. Demps, who was watching from the sidelines, had seen Mia in her spider form before, so he was not surprised. After careful observation, Demps quietly stretched out his sixth finger and rolled back a cursed thread. He placed it on the tip of his tongue and tasted it carefully. Insect adherent? Mia's transformation was not over yet. Nicholas, do you know? Last time, we obtained the bell from the cursed farm. After I deciphered the internal curse, I discovered a secret. The bell itself seemed to originate from a high-level Yimo, and it was proficient in curses. The main reason why he had placed the bell in the underground region of the farm was probably to secretly nurture cursed individuals and gradually invade the Stewart Manor to seize control of it. It's a pity that the Knights got there first. Oh, Han Dong couldn't help but recall the situation that day. When they were leaving the underground region of the farm, Han Dong accidentally turned around and saw a mysterious existence, but it disappeared immediately. It should be the high-level Yimo that Mia mentioned. The quality of the bell itself is better than I expected. For the past few months, other than learning the basic knowledge, I have been trying to infiltrate and control this bell. Nicholas, do you need me to use the bell's ability? Why not? I have said before that I will only consider spending the night if I am satisfied with the sparring. Then you have to be careful. Mia took out the bell from her waist and untied the layers of spider silk that were wrapped around it. She no longer used the bell to summon the 4 members of the cursed house to assist her. Instead, she used the bell as an earring and hung it on Mia's earlobe. For a moment, wisps of curse energy that was completely different from the spider's curse flowed out from the bell. It covered Mia's body and then condensed into 18 iron nails and pierced into Mia's body. This is the iron nail curse that was used on the farm owner. Mia gritted her teeth and endured the pain. She nodded slightly. That's right. The bell contains a variety of different possession curses, among which the iron nail curse is the best. It can stimulate the body's potential to the greatest extent, provide defense, and... Before she finished speaking, Mia's mouth showed signs of moving slightly. Puff! An iron nail wrapped in the curse popped out from the tip of her tongue and pointed directly at Han Dong. This was one of the abilities given by the bell. Driven by the power of the curse, The iron nail flew extremely fast. Once it pierced in the target, the curse would corrode the target's body. Whoosh! The iron nail brushed past his cheek. Han Dong only tilted his head slightly, not panicking at all because of the sneak attack. Han Dong saw all the details clearly. Mia covered her mask with a helpless expression. I forgot about that annoying eye ability of yours. These little tricks are useless. Let's fight head-on. These few days of practical combat practice with the blacksmith sister has made my combat skills more proficient. Spider domain, a dark purple spider web radiated from under Mia's feet with a radius of about 3 meters. Small spiders would constantly be produced in the domain, which could bite outsiders who stepped into the domain or bind the target by quickly spitting silk. Mia was about to rush forward when she suddenly asked, "Right? I have a question to ask you. Is the competition limited to the two of us? Your little friend won't suddenly appear, right?" Mia was still very afraid of Miss Chun, Li, and Togu. "No, it's just me." "Then, I'm coming. Ask for a hug." Mia's 4 spider legs moved quickly. Due to the strengthening of the iron nail curse, her speed was faster than during the training. She rushed forward and took off. The 4 spider legs that were constantly oozing venom opened completely, ready to give Han Dong a loving hug. Insect race perception, compound eye observation, domain restriction. When Mia locked on a Han Dong, she took every situation into consideration and would not give Han Dong any chance to escape. Even if the plague broke out, the insect shell on Mia's body could last for a while, enough to suppress Han Dong. "Nicholas, I'm going to kill you today. Without the help of the summoned creatures, your personal strength is only equivalent to a slightly higher standard than your peers. I haven't been idle for a moment these past few months." Staring at the motionless Han Dong, Mia believed that victory was in her hands. But just as the two of them were close and their long legs were about to hug Han Dong, the little magic eye on Han Dong's forehead suddenly opened. Mia naturally thought about it. When she saw the signs of squirming on Han Dong's forehead, she immediately turned off the visual nervous system. But buzz. With the visual system turned off, Mia still saw an eye in the darkness. An eye with a strange pattern. Boom. There was a loud noise. Mia's head was grabbed by a right arm that was distorted and had a huge eye and pressed firmly to the ground. Any struggle would cause the sharp claws to poke into Mia's body and inject the deadly plague. The small spiders in the surrounding domain seemed to be very afraid of Han Dong. They did not dare to climb onto his body and hid one after another. "Okay, little brother Demps, it's your turn." Chapter 278. Even closing her eyes couldn't stop it. One had to know that Mia had already done a perfect job when she accepted the challenge. She had considered all aspects. The compound eye on her forehead was fully focused on Han Dong's forehead. Once there was any sign of opening her eyes, Mia would immediately cut off her visual nerves. But the first round of practice ended. Mia wasn't unwilling, but walked to the side of the field in a daze. Mia's mind was full of that strange "I just now." It was different from the little magic eye in her impression. There seemed to be more patterns on the pupil. It was these patterns that made Mia lose consciousness in an instant. Why? Why was I affected even though I didn't open my eyes? In close combat, even a second of sluggishness is extremely fatal. Has Nicholas been studying eyes for the past few months? Not only that, his body's strength and mobility have improved. When she thought of this, Mia, who was resting by the wall with her spider legs, suddenly showed a sick smile. "Wow, it's really great. Nicholas, I miss him so much." While fantasizing, the 4 spider legs kept rubbing in the air. It was also when Mia's illness was acting up. Demps slowly came to the center of the field. He stared at Han Dong's jarm that slowly returned to its original state and the little magic eye that was closed again. "Fortunately, I was the second to fight with you, or I would have lost instantly. If I'm not wrong, it involves the problem of distance, right?" Demps pointed out the key point. It was originally a practice, and Han Dong didn't mean to deliberately hide his ability. Demps' brother's insight is really good. It is indeed a problem of distance. As long as we are completely close, the little magic I can ignore all obstacles and play its role. Well, the wind blew under his feet. Demp stepped on a cyclone and immediately opened up a distance of 10 meters from Handong. Since he was a mage, opening up a distance from the target was the most basic preparation before the battle. Student Nicholas, do you still need a rest? There's no need for that. If we can finish the sparring as soon as possible, I'll be able to rest early and prepare for tomorrow's journey of fate. Han Dong actually stretched in front of Demps. Although Demps wouldn't take advantage of such a gap to launch a sneak attack, he was still a little unhappy in his heart. Since Witch Coronia isn't here, I'll show you some of my true abilities. Normal magic shouldn't be able to fool your eyes. Demps took out a series of small bottles from the small satchel he carried with him. 5 liters of pure water. For kilograms of carbon, 0. 5 liters of ammonia, 0. 2 kilograms of lime, 100 grams of phosphorus, 45 grams of salt, 20 grams of saltpeter, 10 grams of sulfur, 1. 5 grams of fluorine, 0. 6 grams of iron, 0. 4 grams of silicon, and a few trace elements. In the meantime, a unique array was quickly drawn by Demps. Is this alchemy? Han Dong stared at the scene and felt a sense of danger. On the sidelines, Mia immediately cast a curious gaze over. She opened a large number of compound eyes to zoom in, as Demps reached out and landed in the center of the array. Using an alchemy array to achieve the balance of activation energy and the directional reconstruction of materials, following a flash of light and shadow. The materials were transformed into a part of Demps' body through the alchemy array. Human body refinement on Demps' left shoulder blade. There was an extra arm. Perhaps in the eyes of ordinary people, it was simple to think that Demps created an extra arm through such a human body refinement to assist in casting spells. But in fact, it wasn't that simple. Little magic, I could also clearly see the internal structure. This arm is an independent life. Han Dong saw through the epidermis and dermis of this arm. What he saw was not only the muscles, blood vessels, and bone structure. Instead, it was a special arm with a sound small organ structure that performed all the functions of the human body. At the same time, Demps' 6th finger also appeared at the end of this arm. When this posture was formed, Demps' whole body exuded a great sense of danger. What was the point of doing this? If the students in the library saw this scene, they would naturally understand. Mages themselves had certain limitations. For example, if a mage was casting ice magic, then the ice energy would flow through the whole body. If a mage wanted to cast a fireball at the same time as an ice arrow, this would cause the two mutually repulsive energies to wander in the body, causing great damage to the body. Therefore, magic apprentices often chose to specialize in a certain direction. Even if they practiced many kinds of magic without a special physique, they could only rely on some special destiny equipment to achieve multicasting. Otherwise, they could only cast one kind of magic and then change to another. There must be a time gap in between. Dempus, on the other hand, thought of a method called simultaneous casting. Through the human body refinement in alchemy, he temporarily created an arm that imitated a human body. It was connected to the body, but separated from the body. The energy of the seed flowed into the body and the arm. This way, there would be no repulsion and multicasting could be achieved at the same time. Moreover, the 6th finger could also adjust and strengthen the whole casting process. This was Little Magician Demps Martin's unknown fighting posture, which was rarely used in front of others. The sparring began. Ice veins stuck to the skin and extended to the body's arms. The left hand held an ice crystal longbow, while the right hand pulled the bow. The fingertips formed an arrow with a cold aura. The cold aura made the wet ground under Demps' feet to form a layer of ice crystals. At the same time, streaks of flames flowed on the 3rd arm. An extremely hot fireball condensed in the palm area. The ice element could freeze the enemy's armor. The fire element could burn the enemy's body. When the two were combined and used at the same time on the enemy, it could achieve a disintegration effect greatly destroying the armor layer and the body. The effect was not as simple as 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. After the giant fireball was refined and compressed by the sixth finger, it suddenly popped out. Dragging a trail of flames, it went straight to Han Dong. Then the ice arrow was shot at the same time. The two completely different magic in the process of flight, there was a combined effect. The fire element and the ice element surrounded each other. Once hit, even the Crusader Knight with high defense would be seriously injured. However, Han Dong did not intend to dodge. A pattern mark faintly appeared in the eyes of the little demon. Staring at the two completely different magic flying toward him, Han Dong could clearly analyze the magic sequence. Dimps this guy. The magic he built is almost perfect. However, any magic needs a temporary core to maintain. The Plague Doctor's dagger was in his hand. Han Dong stepped back slightly and locked onto a point. He swung his right arm hard and threw the dagger. The flying dagger collided with the magic head-on. Boom! Flames and ice crystals scattered in the air. The slightly blackened dagger, covered with a layer of ice crystals, flipped a few times in the air and inserted into the ground. Magic break succeeded. Chapter 279. See through little magic eye could counter both physical and magical attacks. It could see through the path of a physical attack and analyze its weak point. It could see through the internal layout and flow of magic and analyze the location of the magic core. Take Fireball as an example. Once the core of the fireball could be accurately destroyed while it was flying, the fire element itself would no longer be restrained and unable to maintain the fireball form, thus achieving magic break. Han Dong asked Demps to come over to spar to verify this point of little magic eye. On the ground, a short sword carried by a fungus community was sent back to Han Dong's hand. The aura changed? Han Dong frowned and quickly looked at Demps. Magic break, for a mage, was a kind of humiliation. Demps was no longer smiling and began to take this match seriously. The ice element converged. In its place, white lines quickly passed through the subcutaneous veins and spread all over Demps's body. On top of that, 2 cloud imprints were constructed on his ankles. Whoosh, a pale white cloak appeared. Destiny equipment, Psalm's wine cloak, excellent. Its quality was equivalent to the coral seal on Han Dong's finger. It could provide the wearer with a 15% increase in wind attribute, and at the same time, it could form a wind barrier to reduce the damage caused by long-range attacks. The wind attribute was fully activated. Demps moved sideways. His speed was even faster than Abel Ryan's in his Mad Wolf form. He even left behind some afterimages as he moved through subtle wind manipulation techniques. He also wore the spellcaster ring good on both hands. The ring was made with magic stones as the main material, which could optimize the storage and release of magic, making it more convenient for both hands to cast spells. 2 incomparably sharp wind blades had already formed in the center of his palms. With Demps's super fast movement, the wind blades attacked Han Dong from different directions at a speed of 2 per second. Infinite see-through. In the face of the wind blade attack, Han Dong only moved within a 1-meter radius, using the short sword to delicately pierce the magic core in the wind blade. Once it was broken, the wind blade would immediately turn into ordinary air and would not cause any damage. Slowly, as his body adapted, Han Dong passed the task of breaking the wind blades to his right arm. Through the giant eye on his right arm, he was able to perform an adaptive defense. In this fixed mode, the right arm's adaptation was more accurate than Han Dong's subjective control. Little magic eye plus charm equals catching a blade. Barehanded Han Dong's eyes were fixed on Demps the entire time, observing the third hand hidden behind him. Demps is a very shrewd guy. He didn't hesitate to use such a high-intensity magic consumption to attract attention, completely hiding the real, decisive move. The magic book with an iron cover was held in his third hand. Furthermore, there was an extra mouth on the palm of the living hand, and it was currently reading a certain paragraph of text from the magic book. Advanced magic chanting. Some kind of unique magic was slowly being formed as the sixth finger moved. No wonder when I was breaking through the wind blades, I felt a chill run down my spine. Once the chanting is completed, some kind of extremely difficult to break the core and unavoidable high-level magic will be thrown at me. Things will be really troublesome. I still have to go on the journey of destiny tomorrow. Little brother Demps is really merciless. For a moment, the corpse feather coat inside Han Dong's lining was activated, and the feather stood up slightly at a 30 degrees angle. Combined with the griffin boots and Han Dong's crow attribute, it gave Han Dong a high degree of mobility. He no longer broke the wind blades one by one. For a moment, Han Dong was like a black crow. Seeing and dodging every wind blade, he rushed at Demps as fast as he could, even if he couldn't completely avoid the wind blade. When the wind blade came into contact with the corpse feather coat, the black feathers on the surface floated, and the wind blade's path was actually changed, passing through the body without causing any damage. As long as Han Dong could interrupt the chanting and stop the spell, the exchange would be over. The speed of both of them was not slow. However, Dempus had used a circular path to execute the wind blade. Han Dong only needed to move along the tangential line, and he would be able to collide with Demps head-on. If one looked from a high altitude, it would look like a black crow flapping its wings, opening its sharp mouth, raising its claws, and closing in on a beautiful white bird. Just as the two were about to collide, the chanting was suddenly completed. However, it was a very unwise choice to cast a destructive spell at close range. The caster would also be involved in it, and even be injured more. As long as he could suppress Demps before the spell was thrown, it would be fine. But the situation was a bit different. Demps showed a smile. "Vice Captain, I guessed in advance that you could completely dodge the wind blade, and with your observation, you would definitely find out that I was chanting in the dark, and would inevitably choose to take the initiative to get close to me and interrupt my action. In addition, the range of your eyes should not be more than 30 centimeters. As long as it's not completely close, it doesn't matter." Chirp, chirp, chirp. A polluting aura spread out from Demp's body surface. The sixth finger had evolved into a highly polluting aquamarine tentacle, and even had a suction cup structure. The chanting activated the array in the book. Chirp, chirp. The tentacle went deep into the array, as if it was dragging something inside. Whoosh! Seawater splashed. A deep-sea spear inlaid with shells and corals rolled out from the tentacle. Close combat, mage. Han Dong was shocked. The deep-sea long spear, which came out of nowhere, gave Han Dong an instinctive sense of danger. From the beginning, Demps had planned to do so. Set up a multi-layered maze to lure Han Dong closer. He, who was good at controlling long spears, could fix the distance of the battle to a distance that the little magic I could not directly affect. As soon as the spear came out, Han Dong, who only relied on the plague dagger, was no match for him. The tip of the spear stirred. Han Dong seemed to have fallen into a deep-sea area, surrounded by a deep-sea octopus, and could not see through at all. Nicholas, me on the sidelines, also panicked. If this went on, Han Dong might be seriously injured. Her 4 spider legs quickly crawled forward to help, but the distance was so far that she could not catch up at all. However, what happened next on Mia? Facing the mysterious spear that was about to pierce his chest. Clang, clang, clang. Scorching iron chains actually drilled out from Han Dong's arms. With the protection of the iron chains, Han Dong used his greatest strength to grab the tip of the spear. He forcibly stabilized the spear's piercing and made it stop 1 centimeter away from his chest. Dempus furrowed his brows. He decisively withdrew the spear. After the spear was withdrawn, it turned into dark blue seawater and flowed back into the magic book. The third arm, that was refined from the human body, also disappeared. Demps Martin returned to his normal appearance of a magic apprentice, slightly bowed in front of Han Dong, and said politely, "Vice Captain is better. I admit defeat." Han Dong took a deep breath. The scorching iron chains wrapped around the surface of his right arm slowly retracted into the enlarged pores. Yes, this was Togu's L chain. Han Dong, as the main body, temporarily borrowed it. Using it for a short period of time also caused Han Dong's right arm to be severely burned. Otherwise, that spear just now would have really killed him. Brother Demps, you still have some abilities that you haven't used, right? Demps covered his face and smiled, and said in an extremely magnetic voice, "Isn't Vice Captain the same? But Vice Captain has an important mission tomorrow. Let's stop here. If you don't mind, let's go for dinner together." After saying that, Demps also habitually put his arm on Han Dong's shoulder. Chapter 280. Holy City, 3rd floor, Royal Lion Hotel, Sizzle. The carriage with the artist Mayakid's carvings stopped in front of the hotel. "Mr. Demps Martin, please come with me." After a while, Demps, Han Dong, and Mia came to a small room decorated with crystals. A dazzling array of top-quality dishes were served at the same time. Wow! Mia had never seen such a scene, and a trace of venomous saliva flowed along the corner of her mouth. "You're welcome. You're going to the Destiny Realm tomorrow. Today, I used a lot of energy to practice. This meal would be a reward for the Vice Captain's hard work. Practicing with the Vice Captain made me find a lot of shortcomings, and it also made me think about some details." Han Dong was also stunned by the sight, smell, and taste of the high-class dishes. "Brother Demps, this hotel seems to be only accessible to high-ranking nobles, royalty, or high-ranking members of the Holy City, right? And the cost of living here should be very high, right? How'd you do it?" Demps hooked his finger in the air. "Didn't I say before that this is my side job? I can make a little money through massaging, and I can also practice my finger technique. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, isn't it good?" Han Dong looked helpless. He was currently spending a lot of manpower and material resources to rebuild the laboratory outside the city. After the production line came out, the final annual income may not be as much as Demps's casual massage. At the thought of this, Han Dong felt a tightness in his chest. However, Han Dong was shocked by what happened after that. He felt that the soup not only filled his stomach, but also restored the physical strength and energy consumed in the practice. Demps, with an elegant posture, cut the fish on the plate and said simply, "Being surrounded by negative things such as pollution, fear, fatigue, and so on all day long, this kind of enjoyment and relaxation is very necessary. Some high-ranking members of the Knights often come to this hotel to spend money. It's similar to a top-level stress release method. Moreover, this hotel listed its guests on the top floor, especially when it came to the privacy of its guests. Many important people choose to discuss their private affairs here. Yes, let's keep the matter between us a secret. As for our secrets, we'll share them when we've gained a firm foothold in the Holy City." "All right. Also, I booked a room while I was at it." According to Miss Mia, the environment and facilities of the Royal Lion Hotel were naturally much better than the student dormitories. "Your information has been registered with the hotel. Through the clockwork bracelet, you can enjoy most of the hotel services. The staff will also take you to the corresponding rooms. Enjoy it." As soon as he heard this, Mia's prejudice against Demps was completely gone. "We'll meet at the entrance of the clock tower at 11:30 sharp. Hurry up and eat your breakfast before the food gets cold." Okay. When Han Dong got up, he felt his body was incomparably light and in excellent condition. The high-quality food coupled with the various top-class services gave Han Dong an unprecedented peak condition. "If I can perfectly clear the game, I'll have to properly thank Demps when I return. Let's go. Let's go." After eating breakfast, Han Dong waved at the 2 girls. Unexpectedly, a few strands of white fur fell to the ground. Mia happened to see this. "I'm so angry." Chapter 281. In front of the familiar bell tower. There were more than 20 selected teams of apprentice knights waiting here. There were still many new teams who looked terrible. Due to the mental pressure, they even had insomnia all night. Han Dong came to the bell tower for the 3rd time. Even if today's Destiny event would be increased in difficulty through the card and might even completely distort the original Destiny event, However, Han Dong was still calm and did not feel any pressure. The night spent in the Royal Lion Hotel allowed Han Dong to reach his best state. He was ready to deal with any danger. Time was up. Accompanied by the steam, copper pipes descended one by one. The next second, the clock bearer should walk out from the inside. But in Han Dong's eyes, a red balloon floated out from the inside. Then, Pennywise the clown, who was wearing a fluffy clown costume with white paint on his face, jumped out from the bottom of the bell tower. He danced happily and came to Han Dong with the red balloon. He used his big nose to sniff Han Dong's body. A dangerous aura. You seem to be going on an extraordinary adventure again. Don't die on the way. I'm still waiting for you to come back and visit in Draytown. The clown reached out and pointed at his empty right sleeve. But I have a feeling that something will happen to you this time. Didn't you cut off my arm? When you're in danger, you can take it out and use it. Maybe it can save your life. I don't want you to die in another world. Pop! The balloon exploded. The balloon in the clown's hand exploded. Abel snapped his fingers in front of Han Dong. Nicholas, are you okay? I'm fine. When Han Dong came back to his senses, only his team was left outside the bell tower. The clown's arm? Han Dong had been storing his arm in the sterile laboratory and completely bound it with a testing device. Because his load limit had reached its limit, he could not use it for the time being. I'll think about it when I'm really in danger. When the last team entered the bell tower, just like before, they went through a series of tests and waiting processes. Listening to the sound of the thousands of gears inside the clock tower, the team finally arrived before the door of destiny. He stared at the deep door that led to an unknown place. This was blacksmith Wen Li's first time here, so she was a little scared. Mia immediately pressed her face against Wen Li's and used kisses and caresses to make Wen Li relax. It seemed that after last night's enjoyment, their relationship had improved. Let's go. Abel held the card of fate, scepter, in his hand. Holding hands, the four of them entered together. Detected that a party member is carrying a card of fate, scepter. Do you wish to use it? Abel conveyed his affirmation through his consciousness. But there was a ringing sound in his ears. Once again, he landed in a familiar area, video shop. Strange. Isn't it random? Why are you here? The last few times Han Dong was able to come here, he had used up the cards of fate with the choice ability. He arrived at the video store to make a selection. But this time, the cards used did not have the choice ability, so it was simply more difficult. Logically speaking, everyone should be directly transported to a completely distorted fate world. The CDs and books on these shelves can't be seen. Even if it's random, we still have to make a choice. Unlike the previous few times, all the products in a video store were covered in a thick black fog, which could not be dispersed or seen clearly. The system notification sounded. Please take any product on the shelf that corresponds to the fate background and place the cards of fate in your hands into it to combine. The estimated time to combine is 30 minutes. Hint: do not try to check the product information in any way or you'll be erased. Since they could not read any information, it was the same whoever made the choice. Captain Abel, since the card is yours, you can make the decision. Okay. Abel, who was born and raised in the sacred city, seemed to be repulsed by the CDs that he had never seen before. He went straight to the book section. According to Mr. Black and White's request, he tried his best to choose difficult events, but he could not check the product's information here. Abel's brain was still relatively simple, and he directly linked thickness to difficulty. He chose a relatively thick book and placed it in front of the cashier. Next, he followed the instructions and combined the cards of fate with the book. When Abel gently placed the golden card into the book, the golden light immediately dispersed the black fog on the surface of the book. Product upgrade. During this process, please do not arbitrarily move the book that is being combined and do not touch other products in the video store. In a situation where he could not do anything, he could only stare at the cover of the book that had been dispersed by the fog. Two words that only Han Dong could read appeared. Ghost story. The twisted words were extremely eerie, and the mouth that formed the second word was like a bottomless human mouth. There was a black eye in the mouth, as if it was staring at the reader. The background of the book cover was a strange crossroad. If one looked closely, they would find many interesting details. For example, in a taxi waiting at a traffic light, the driver did not have both hands. On the sidewalk, a woman pushing a baby carriage left a trail of blood behind her. On the display cabinet of a newspaper stand at the end of the street, there seemed to be a row of dried human heads. On the drying pole of a certain house's balcony, there were many wrinkled leather bags hanging. Japanese ghost story? This is a bit troublesome. Han Dong quickly identified the source of the book. This was not a book from his home country, but from a small island country that was close to his home country. Although Japan was small, there were a lot of strange stories circulating in the country. Many of the top directors of horror movies were born in Japan. Moreover, the literary works that they created were often bad endings, and the existences that were involved in them were almost impossible to resist. Han Dong rarely watched such idealistic movies or books when he was alive. He only heard online about how scary Japanese horror movies were, and how they could even scare people to death. In Han Dong's opinion, even if it could really scare people to death, it was just some people with serious heart disease who wanted to die. Now that he thought about it, there was a certain possibility that he would die in such a literary work, and he felt that it was somewhat ironic. I estimate, even if the card of fate is not fused, the world of fate corresponding to this book is also very difficult. I hope the card will not distort the original world too much, causing us to have no clue. Miss Wen Li and the team should also be very afraid of this type of world background. Let me take good care of him. Waiting quietly, as the cards gradually fused, the crossroad on the cover of the book became alive. Fusion complete, generating scene all of a sudden. The book opened and pulled Han Dong and his group into it. Ghost story, it officially began. Chapter 282. The combination has been completed. The original Fate event, Ghost Stories, has been changed to Ghost Stories Paradise. The background has been greatly reconstructed. The event has been rearranged. The initial identity of the participants has been changed. Restrictions have been added. Introduction. In the current world, through the use of advanced neurotechnology, humans have captured the existence of spirits for the first time. From there, they have verified the existence of scary urban legends around the world, or ghost stories for short. The Joint Administrative Bureau has released the Ghost Stories Collection Plan. The Special Ops Bureau in Japan has used a certain method to gather all the ghost stories in the country to one location. A place to investigate and research supernatural knowledge, Ghost Stories Paradise, has been built. Even the world's cruelest death row inmate will pick up the fear that they have long abandoned in the paradise. Type: Evil Spirit. Event difficulty: Seed Stage, Standard 5 stars. Main mission: Twisted Escape from the Ghost Stories Paradise. There is no time limit. Based on the Ghost Stories points obtained, there will be 4 different rewards. Frowny Face New Prisoner. Ghost Stories points less than 51 Destiny Point, 1 Ghost Story Souvenir. Normal Prisoner. Ghost Stories points less than 102 Destiny Points, 1 Ghost Story Souvenir. Professional Prisoner. Ghost Stories points less than 202 Destiny Points. Card of Fate, Seed Stage, 1 Ghost Story Souvenir. Death Row Prisoner. Ghost Stories points greater than 203 Destiny Points. Card of Fate, Seed Stage, 1 Ghost Story Souvenir. Note: 1. There's a Ghost Story shop in the Paradise. You can use Ghost Stories points to purchase items that are helpful. Note: items purchased from the Ghost Stories shop cannot be brought out of the Destiny space. 2. Ghost Stories points that are not spent will be converted into Destiny points according to the ratio of 10:1. 3. Current Destiny event difficulty has reached the highest level in the Seed Stage. Please proceed with caution. Wow. 5 stars. The moment the consciousness connected with the body, the blacksmith, Wen Li, was so scared that her face paled. She could not help but scream. Then she realized that she had lost her composure and quickly pretended that nothing had happened. Wen Li's scream attracted the unfriendly and even perverted gazes from the people who were in the same car. They seemed to crave the beauty of Wen Li. He had officially entered the Destiny realm. However, The team did not appear directly at the so-called Ghost Stories paradise. Currently, he was sitting in a bright and clean carriage of a bullet train. The train was speeding along the ocean railway, and the blue sea was outside the window. For the humans living in the holy city, the ocean was mysterious and invisible. They had only read beautiful descriptions of the ocean in books. Such a beautiful scene immediately attracted the attention of Abel and Mia, who were sitting by the window. According to the incident description, the destination of this train was obviously the theme park used to collect ghost stories in Japan. Let's talk about the situation of the four of them. He was dressed in a prisoner's uniform with black and white stripes, and his hands and feet were shackled by a superalloy reinforced electronic chain. Han Dong stared at his attire and muttered, "That's right. Conduct the event as a prisoner?" Sure enough, it was a world enhanced and distorted by cards. Even the beginning was so troublesome. The reward of completing the 5-star difficulty is that if you can perfectly clear the dungeon, you can obtain 3 destiny points in one go. How interesting. Thinking back to the incident with the clown, the 4-star difficulty almost burned Han Dong's brain cells dry. However, the nature of the 2 destiny events was different. In The Clown Returns to Life, there was an intelligent final boss, the clown Pennywise. But this time, Ghost Stories Paradise did not seem to have a final boss. In essence, it was a destiny event with multiple plots, multiple monsters, and multiple methods. The goal was to obtain Ghost Stories points and escape from the theme park. There was no fixed goal. In comparison, Han Dong preferred this kind of destiny event. After all, facing the clown head-on was too much of a headache. After hearing the incident description, other than Han Dong, who was calm, the expressions of the other 3 changed. The expressions of the 3 members of the party changed to a certain extent. They had never experienced such a difficult fate event before, and they did not know how difficult it would be. The danger level was self-evident. The slightest mistake, the slightest bit of delay, or even the slightest bit of panic could lead to death. These prisoners are not simple. Han Dong turned his head to look at the situation inside the train carriage. There were a total of 8 teams in each carriage for people in a team, but it was unclear how many carriages there were. Their attire was the same as Han Dong's. They were prisoners from the lowest level of the prison, and they were definitely not normal prisoners who had committed minor crimes from their eyes that had no hope in life or their eyes that bordered on madness. It was clear that they were all prisoners on death row. Furthermore, every prisoner seemed to exude a powerful aura. With such a worldview, these prisoners seemed to have inhuman abilities. At this moment, a foldable LCD screen was lowered from the top of every seat in the carriage. A woman dressed like a radio host appeared on the screen. "Prisoners on death row, hello. In half an hour, our train will arrive at Paradise Station. Now, I will explain the relevant requirements and rules of this journey on death row. The following content concerns your fundamental interests, so please listen carefully. Humans exist in this world for a reason, and you are the same. Because you have violated the law, you have been deprived of your life rights, but we have not completely given up on you. And you still have the chance to continue contributing to humanity and the world. That is to enter paradise and try your best to bring back useful supernatural information and information for humanity. Those who meet the requirements will be able to return to society, and your files will be cleared. We will give you a chance to start anew. The premise is that you have to meet the requirements. Please lower your head to look at your wrist. The number 5 represents your initial ghost story points. It is the most important thing for you to survive in paradise. Inside paradise, there's also a ghost story supermarket that we have spent a lot of manpower and resources to create. You can spend points in the supermarket to buy a variety of consumables, props to help you survive, or clues that can help you earn more points. 1 point can be exchanged for clues to ghost stories that no one cares about. 5 points can be exchanged for clues to scary ghost stories. 10 points can be exchanged for clues to ghost stories that aunties are spreading. 30 points can be exchanged for clues to ghost stories that everyone knows. When your ghost story points reach 100 points, you can exchange for passes of the supermarket and leave through the nearest exit. At the same time, you will start a new life. Chapter 283. Han Dong whispered as softly as possible to calm everyone down. Don't be nervous. Listen to the staff's instructions before entering the paradise. As for how to start the event exploration, we'll talk about it when we officially enter the paradise area. Okay, Mia. What? Mia was still a little angry. She was furious when she thought about how their two-person world was ruined yesterday and how Han Dong grabbed a bunch of white hairs. It's Miss Wen Li's first time carrying out a fate event. Because of her, the hidden difficulty of the event will be slightly lower. I need you to take care of her, Mia. Oof. Even if you don't tell me, I'll take care of Sister Wen Li. Only Sister Wen Li was with me last night. I don't want to talk to a scumbag like you who doesn't keep his words. It was different from usual. Han Dong didn't have time to joke around since they were in the middle of a 5-star event. Han Dong looked serious. Mia, I'm not joking with you. Miss Wen Li's life will be in danger if she's not careful in a 5-star event. Not only do I need you to be responsible for Wen Li's safety, but I also need you to teach her all kinds of details. No mistakes are allowed. I know, you're so fierce. Mia actually knew the seriousness of the matter. In the past few months of being friends with blacksmith Wen Li, Mia also knew how timid the blacksmith was. She was very afraid of unknown evil spirits and monsters. The uncanny valley effect was quite serious. This time, it happened to be an evil spirit event, so Mia's workload was not small. However, Wen Li herself was an indispensable tool. No, indispensable combat power. They had to ensure that Wen Li would not make any mistakes and be of the greatest use at the critical moment. This was the key to a perfect clearance. As for Captain Abel, Han Dong didn't need to remind him at all. Abel's experience and ability could definitely adapt to this event. Coincidentally, Han Dong didn't see Abel's true strength during the last training. It was just right that he could use this event to understand the strongest freshman who had more potential than Captain came on. After a while, the blue sea outside the window was replaced by a sealed tunnel. The train continued to travel at high speed and circled around the outer management area of the paradise. Every time they arrived at a platform, a carriage of prisoners would disembark. Using this method, a large number of death row inmates would enter paradise from different directions to reduce the possibility of conflict. When the train stopped at platform 8, it was Han Dong's turn. All death row inmates, please take note that when you leave the carriage, a person in charge will bring you into the paradise buffer zone. After passing all the checks, you will be released from the restrictions and officially enter paradise. In the meantime, please comply with the request of the person in charge. Along with the broadcast announcement, a person in charge wearing exoskeleton armor led Han Dong and the other 3 out of the car. After a series of basic checks, they passed through a secret passage in the tunnel and came to a room with a number. You have 10 minutes in the buffer room to remove the restraints on your body and make preparations. Once the time is up, you will enter paradise from entrance 078. After the person in charge passed the iris identification, the buffer room opened. Oh, the treatment is pretty good. He thought it would be a very simple room. He didn't expect the interior to have everything. Exquisite dishes were placed on the table, accompanied by a large amount of energy-replenishing chocolate and vitamin drinks. On the shelves on both sides were a large number of basic weapons and clothing. Other than firearms, there were swords, spears, sticks, and everything else. DDD, through the laser device on the wall, the electronic handcuffs on the hands and feet could be separated. It was important to note that this was only separate and not release. The electronic handcuffs were still attached to Han Dong and the others. It was obvious that the person in charge of the paradise could use this device to locate the prisoners in real time. Other than that, there was a warning written on the scanner. Do not destroy the electronic handcuffs in any way, or you will be deprived of your last chance to seek reincarnation in the paradise. Han Dong thought about the various restrictions and said in a low voice, I believe that in the original ghost stories, we would have appeared in a normal Japanese and investigated the local ghost stories as normal visitors. After being strengthened and distorted by the card of fate, even the basic background framework has been changed. This is quite troublesome. 5 stars. This is my first time carrying out a fate event, and it's at full difficulty. Winley kept rubbing her fingers nervously. Mia immediately went forward to comfort her. It's fine. Don't we have a captain and vice-captain? Moreover, we are survivors who escaped from the old king. A seed stage fate event won't be difficult for us. We only have 10 minutes. Sister Winley, let's quickly find some clothes to change into. Okay. Mia turned her head and said unhappily, we girls need to change. Don't peek. Mia immediately weaved a dense spider web in the area with the clothes to block the view. Soon, the two girls' conversation came from the spider web. Wow, Sister Winley, you have a great body. Sister Mia, don't. A series of strange conversations made the atmosphere a little bad. Han Dong sat at the dining table and ate with a normal expression. At the same time, he put away the energy-replenishing chocolate bars. As for the various cold weapons on the other side, they were not necessary for Han Dong and the others. Han Dong stared at the cold weapons and looked at Abel. Captain, if we provide cold weapons here, I believe we can use ghost story points to exchange for some high-damage firearms at the so-called shop. Moreover, I've observed the prisoners who came in with us, and they all seem to have inhuman power. The rules didn't mention that we're not allowed to kill each other. I even suspect that there's a possibility of stealing points. Therefore, other than being careful of ghost stories, we have to be careful of these prisoners. Okay, at this moment, the two girls finished changing. Winley, like before, found a fitting black tank top. At the same time, she used bandages to minimize her more prominent features to prevent it from affecting her movement. Mia, on the other hand, changed into a black leather jacket that was completely close-fitting, showing off her tall and slender figure. Mia, change if you don't want us to be surrounded by a group of hungry men. Idiot, I'm choosing my own clothes. Why do you have to care? Not bothering to hide anything at all, Mia pulled down the zipper on her back and changed her clothes in front of everyone. Winley, who was at the side, immediately stepped forward and blocked her with her body. In the end, she changed into civilian clothing, a t-shirt and a pair of black shorts. However, he felt that Mia's long legs would still attract trouble. However, Han Dong did not say anything. Let's go. Let's start exploring Ghost Stories Paradise. Chapter 284. According to the workers at Paradise, each team had 5 basic ghost story points, which could be used for shopping. Without knowing anything at the beginning, Han Dong and the others naturally had to find the shop to understand the specific situation of the shop, and then exchange for related ghost story clues. As for how to obtain more points, we'll have to go to the shop to ask. They officially entered Paradise. Han Dong was completely stunned by what he saw inside. He thought that when all the ghost stories were collected in one city, the city would turn into an absolute ghost town. Normal people would not be able to live in such an environment. A desolate and bleak mature environment was what Han Dong initially expected. But in reality, outside the buffer room was a dark alley. Once the door was closed, it merged with the cement wall of the alley and was completely hidden. This is Paradise. They walked out of the dark alley. Abundant sunlight shone on the street. When the pain gradually adapted, what greeted their eyes was the bustling pedestrian street of Che Shui Malone. Such a scene was difficult to accept for Abel, who lived in the holy city. It even felt weird and uncomfortable. But for Han Dong, it was too familiar. It even made his eyes redden. Huge electronic billboards with huge faces. Various brand clothing stores with different styles. A large number of people with their heads lowered came and went. They were either watching videos, chatting with friends, or dealing with work matters. At the same time, there were also hawkers pushing octopus ball carts on the street. There was a sushi restaurant with a canopy. There was also a ramen restaurant where one could smell the fragrance of dolphin bones from 10 meters away. Pedestrian street, Han Dong had been to the Institute of Molecular Cell Research at Tokyo University as a visiting scholar when he was alive. He had lived there for about a year. Han Dong could still do the most basic communication. Moreover, this place was different from the countryside, corresponding to the first movie Bewitched. Since it was in a relatively advanced city area, basic communication could be done in English. Wow! As a blacksmith, Wenli was able to quickly accept such a new thing. She was immediately attracted by the various streamlined designs. Wenli, don't run around. Wait for me here. It's totally different from the paradise I imagined. Since there are people living here, we have to keep a low profile. It didn't take long for Han Dong to steal some autumn windbreakers from the warehouse of a clothing store. The relatively loose cuffs completely covered the electronic handcuffs on his wrists. At the same time, Han Dong also stole some Japanese yen bills from the warehouse that he would definitely need. He led his team into the crowd and arrived at a kiosk at the end of the street. Han Dong bought 4 sets of paradise maps from the boss in fluent Japanese. When Li, who was following the team, asked with confusion, "Lieutenant, there are many shops in this city. How can we confirm that we're looking for a ghost story shop? I only know one thing. This kind of store definitely won't appear in public." Han Dong pointed at their current location on the map. "Let's use the crossroads as a temporary rendezvous point. We'll split up and search. Come back here in an hour. Try your best to search in a dark and secluded area. Also, don't cause any trouble." Han Dong's last sentence was naturally from Mia. With Mia's personality, if she encountered something that made her unhappy, she might just attack. Mia reached out and hugged Wenli. "Don't worry, this is a 5-star mission. They won't do anything rash. Sister Wenli, let's go. Be careful. Since we're already here, there might be danger at any time." "I know, you're so naggy." They split up. Every team member had a different way of acting independently. Abel hid in the streets and alleys immediately. He embedded his sharp claws into the walls and quickly climbed up to the roofs. Through jumping and moving on the roofs, coupled with his excellent vision and a unique sense of smell of a beast, he searched for unique areas. Mia, on the other hand, would release some small spiders every time they passed through a dark alley. On the other hand, Mia herself would try to obtain information from some hooligans and ask them if they knew about some unknown strange shops. From Han Dong's perspective, the background of the current world, the level of technology is probably 100 to 200 years ahead of the world I was living in. They can actually create such a bionic city to collect ghost stories. The humans coming and going on the streets don't seem to be real, but they're almost the same as real people. Let's find a shop first. Han Dong tried to disguise himself and blend in the crowd, but he found that he couldn't blend in no matter how hard he tried. The reason was not himself, but there was something wrong with the humans in the city itself. Han Dong specially bought a large hooded sweater with a hood to cover his little magic so that he could observe in the dark. After half an hour of searching, Han Dong didn't find anything. There was no shop and there was no ghost story. All of a sudden, Walalala, the originally clear sky suddenly started to rain heavily, and the whole city became gloomy. Han Dong quickly came to the eaves of a supermarket to take shelter from the rain. Is it possible that the shop is combined with a normal supermarket? Han Dong, who walked around the supermarket, bought an umbrella and deliberately showed the prisoner's handcuffs in front of the cashier. But he didn't get any response. His guess was wrong. "Dear customer, our store is equipped with public umbrellas. You can use your phone to scan them." "No need. It's raining heavily. There should be no more umbrellas, right? There's still one left." Following the reminder of the cashier, Han Dong looked at the public umbrella stand at the entrance of the supermarket. There was only one red umbrella left on it. The surface of the umbrella exuded a strange aura. At this moment, an anxious office worker with a briefcase received a call from his boss and immediately scanned and took the red umbrella. Soon, it disappeared in the heavy rain. What a pity, this umbrella is 6,600 yen in total. When the salesman turned his head, he found that the money had been placed on the cashier's counter. The young customer who just bought the umbrella had left. In the heavy rain, Han Dong followed the office worker who had just taken the last red umbrella. It was not just a matter of aura. When a man opened the umbrella, a human head appeared inside the umbrella. The head was tightly attached to the man's shoulder. A long gray tongue was sticking out from the unusually bright red lips, licking the man's cheek from time to time. The man only felt the cold rain splashing on his cheek and didn't know anything. Chapter 285. What's going on? Leaking rain? The quality of this public umbrella is really bad. But as long as the documents are not wet, it's fine. Today's meeting can't go wrong. I must be there on time. This office worker hurried to the company on the other side of the street. He often felt raindrops dripping on his cheeks. It was unusually cold. It's so cold. Another cold, liquid touch came from the side of his cheek. When the man habitually touched his right cheek, he found that the rainwater was a bit sticky. Moreover, there were 2 strands of hair stuck on his finger. At the same time, there was an inexplicable feeling of being peeped at close range, which gave him goosebumps all over his body. But in order to not let the documents in his hand get wet, he still held the umbrella and changed to running to the company. At the same time, the cold, sticky liquid appeared more frequently on the side of his face. Even when he glanced at the side of his face, he seemed to feel that there was a head leaning on his shoulder. Could it be? The urban legend is true. The company was just across the street. The man, who was completely flustered, did not notice the problem of the traffic light at all. Boom! A car that was speeding in the rainstorm hit the man's body head-on. The handwritten documents in the briefcase were scattered everywhere. The umbrella in the man's hand was also thrown out. A serious car accident occurred at the intersection. The deceased, Ikegami Yutani, was an ordinary employee of Halida Company. Witnesses said that before the accident, the deceased tried to run through the red light with a panicked face. Due to the low visibility in the rainstorm, he collided head-on with the speeding car. There was also one more thing mentioned. The deceased was holding a red umbrella in his hand. But the red umbrella was not found at the scene of the accident. Perhaps it was thrown too far away due to the high-speed impact. A young man in a hat walked into the alley 100 meters away from the scene of the accident. In his hand was the red umbrella that was lost at the scene of the accident. When the accident happened, Han Dong, who was following this person, was naturally at the scene. He steadily caught the red umbrella that was thrown out, avoided the sight, and quietly walked away from the scene. Just as Han Dong stepped into the alley, the familiar system prompt came from the Destiny realm. However, the prompt this time was different from the past. Whether it was the voice or the prompt, it was different. Perhaps it had something to do with the difficulty of 5 stars. In Han Dong's mind, it was the voice of an eerie old woman. It was as if she was telling him a horror story. Ghost stories. Red umbrella strange ghost stories. It was rumored that a series of vicious serial murders had taken place in the area of Hashima City in Gifu Prefecture. The murderer was used to acting on rainy days, and he specifically targeted young women with red umbrellas. Due to the vile nature of the crime and the high number of crimes, which seriously affected the local law and order, when the local police couldn't solve the case, a senior agent from Nagoya took over. Finally, through some high-tech image processing technology and investigation methods, the identity and location of the suspect were determined. The police were mobilized and broke into the house. The room was filled with the stench of corpses. The suspect, Masajima Toshio, had already been dead for more than 10 days. The narrow room was filled with all kinds of candid photos and red umbrellas held by the victims when they were alive. The suspect seemed to have a weakness for the color red. At the same time, the heads of the previous victims were stored in a large freezer in the basement. After the forensic analysis of the suspect's body, it was found that he was overly frightened before he died. He used the lines connected to the photos to strangle himself to death. This was the main cause of death. But strangely, the body cavity was filled with rainwater and hair. At the same time, the report of the evidence department came out. Since the victims' heads were kept in cold storage, they were soon matched with the previous victims. But one head was missing. Moreover, the missing head happened to be the victim of the last murder. After careful calculation of the time of death, It was found that the time of death of the suspect happened to be the same day as the victim's death. In other words, after the suspect killed the victim, he died in his own home that night. Since the suspect was brought to justice, the case was closed, but when it came to this, the local police didn't want to talk about it. A few days after the end of the incident, occasionally, a red umbrella would appear on the public umbrella rack in Hiroshima City. Some people who couldn't wait for the rain to stop and didn't want to take a taxi often died in accidents after using this red umbrella. After the autopsy, it was found that there was a large amount of rainwater and sticky black hair left in their bodies. The story of the strange and bizarre events was finished. The old woman's voice in Han Dong's mind continued to talk about the related mission requirements and arrangements. Ghost story level, B triggering method, non-clue, indirect trigger, requirements. Carry the umbrella with you for 24 hours. The umbrella can only be separated from the individual by clothing. If the umbrella is separated for any reason during this period, the timer will be reset. When the time is up, you can obtain ghost story information. Submit it to the shop to obtain the corresponding ghost story points. Ha ha ha! Eerie laughter. At this point, the introduction of the side event ended. This is completely different from the explanation of the side event in the Destiny space. It's like an old man telling the story of a ghost story. It involves the issue of level. The current red umbrella corresponds to a B level, so it should be a slightly above average ghost story. I didn't expect to encounter it at the start of the game. However, through this incident, one thing was proven. Even without the clues in the shop, I can still trigger the ghost story. Since the requirement is to carry it with me, then so be it. As for the problem of the ghost story, I'll think about it later. I believe the history of this umbrella is very complicated. Perhaps a serial killer was one of the owners of this umbrella. Han Dong carried the umbrella on his back with a thin string. The requirement to carry it with him for 24 hours was obviously for Han Dong to survive this period of time. Just now, the poor office worker met with an unexpected disaster in 5 minutes. I should try to return to the junction and meet up with him first. Han Dong carried the umbrella and prepared to walk out of the alley. The feeling of cold rain touching his cheeks came. Han Dong turned his head to look. A head was growing on his shoulder. It was completely different from Chun-Li. Chun-Li was still human. Currently, the thing that had taken root on Han Dong's shoulder through the tendrils was a real spirit. Pale makeup. 2 red dots touched the upper and lower lips. A dark gray tongue that kept dripping rain poked out of the mouth. Chapter 286. From Abel's perspective. The sudden heavy rain helped Abel to hide and jump quickly from roof to roof. Suddenly, Abel's running speed suddenly slowed down and stopped at the top of an old residential building. He sniffed his nose. An unusual smell was caught by Abel. If I encounter any ghost story, I have to retreat immediately. It's too risky to deal with it alone. But Abel's idea was different from Han Dong's. His purpose was to find the shop, and he didn't want to come into contact with a ghost story at the beginning. In the almost abandoned residential building, there were only a few old people who had half their bodies in the ground. Searching for the smell, Abel came to a wooden door with a metal door. The delicate metal door with lace formed a sharp contrast with the old wooden door that was already cracked. The door was printed with 4 twisted words, Ghost Story Shop. In terms of words, Han Dong had already told Abel in advance how to write shop in Japanese. Found it. I have to go back and meet up with them. Abel immediately crawled out of the window in the corridor. While he was crawling, he unexpectedly saw 4 strong men with ferocious eyes walking downstairs. They seemed to be looking for a shop as well. Death row prisoners? Let's ignore them for now. His claws dug into the wall. Abel quickly crawled away. However, among the group of death row prisoners downstairs, there was a completely blind man. His hand was behind his ear, and he seemed to hear some sound and immediately pointed to the top floor. When his teammates looked, they only saw a white shadow flash by. From Han Dong's perspective, he, who was in direct contact with the ghost story, was trying to reduce the danger. It was like a plant rooted to the ground. This woman's head with exaggerated white powder also took root on Han Dong's shoulder through a kind of flesh. However, the root was limited to the coat and couldn't penetrate the bone feather coat that exuded a polluted smell. Such a human head. Not to mention the fact that her makeup was extremely terrifying. Just the fact that it directly grew on one person's shoulder, even the other members of the team would inevitably fall into a state of panic for a period of time, and most of them would choose to remove the umbrella. Not to mention, the skull itself was emitting a deadly sense of danger. However, Han Dong was not in a hurry to throw away the umbrella, nor did he panic because of the head. Instead, he stared at the woman calmly. After all, in essence, Han Dong was also a head. Han Dong tried to pronounce as accurately as possible and spoke in a more authentic Japanese. Hello. However, the other party did not respond. Drip, drip, drip. His tongue, dripping with rainwater, slowly licked Han Dong's cheek. The moment they were about to touch, zong, a streak of light flashed past. A kitchen knife appeared out of nowhere and accurately slashed down. Dark gray tongue smack. It fell to the ground and turned into a puddle of rainwater. Not long after, another tongue grew out of the woman's mouth. Unlike the previous time, this time, the speed of the tongue was extremely fast, and it suddenly licked Han Dong's cheek. Whoosh! The ending remained the same. The kitchen knife slashed down decisively. The tongue fell to the ground and turned into a puddle of rainwater. As early as when he was tracking and observing the poor office worker, Han Dong had been thinking about all possible countermeasures. He licked the victim's face with his tongue. Every time he licked, a strange kind of rainwater would stain the victim's face and seep into the skin through his pores. This was also why the victims always felt a chill on their cheeks when they opened a red umbrella. It was also why a large amount of rainwater was found in the victims' bodies after they died. The rainwater that entered the victim's body would affect the victim's thinking to a certain extent, leading to accidental death. Therefore, Han Dong targeted the tongue. As soon as he picked up the red umbrella, he secretly asked Chun-Li to be prepared. If the other party dared to lick Han Dong, the kitchen knife would be presented to him. Han Dong continued to speak politely. I don't mean any hostility. May I ask if we could talk normally? However, the gloomy tongue spat out again. However, this time, it did not intend to lick Han Dong. Instead, it made the tongue spin back and forth in the air. It was quite magical. It seemed that she had not spoken for a long time and had forgotten the basic way of using her tongue. After a while, a vague language came out from the woman's mouth. Everyone who picked up the umbrella must die. Han Dong nodded helplessly. Well, that's a very cliché horror movie line. Can you say something else? After all, we are the same kind. Han Dong had confirmed with the little magic eye that there were no other people or surveillance cameras in the alley. In front of the woman's head, he separated his head from his body and moved it on his shoulder to show respect. He knew about the existence of the friendliness setting. He had a brief experience of working together with the clown in The Clown Recovers. Han Dong tried to take a gamble. At the beginning of this incident, he tried to establish a relationship with the corresponding spirit of the ghost story. It was necessary to try. If he succeeded, Han Dong would obtain an unexpected intelligence resource. You are strange. The woman showed a surprised expression. Han Dong tried to ease the relationship between the two. Since we're the same kind of people, there is no need to hurt each other. How about this? If you have anything you want to do, you can tell me anytime. I want you to die. Han Dong had heard that the corresponding spirit behind the scenes in Japanese horror movies often held a grudge against the world and killed people indiscriminately. So that was the case. I can die, but I have a request. Can you let me live for 24 hours? When the time is up, you can do whatever you want with me. Han Dong was actually making a bet when he said this. He was betting that this simple-minded spirit who only knew how to harm people, did not know about the 24-hour limit and would not think of this problem. After speaking many times, the woman's head found the feeling of speaking and her words were much clearer. Take off the strange feather clothes. I promise you. Otherwise, I will kill you now. Oh, you seem to be very afraid of this feather clothes in my body. The materials of the corpse feather clothes were all from outside the city. This was why equipment from outside the city was a double-edged sword. Pollution could affect everything. Han Dong quickly removed the feather clothes and placed it inside his backpack. Crunch, crunch. Without the protection of the feather clothes, the tendrils that were originally rooted to the surface of the clothes were forced to penetrate further. A cold feeling of rain came from his shoulder. The woman's head was completely attached to Han Dong's shoulder. The woman's head revealed a cruel smile. The countdown starts now. Hurry up and enjoy the rest of your time. Okay. On the surface, Han Dong had to play along and pretend to be nervous. The corresponding spirit of the ghost story doesn't seem to be very intelligent. This is good. Han Dong revealed a smile that he could not hide. Carrying the red umbrella and with an extra head on his shoulder, he returned to the junction to meet up with his teammates. Of course, normal people would not be able to see this head. Of course, if possible, try to trace the origin of this umbrella within the next 24 hours. The ghost story that was rated B by the system was not easy to deal with. Whether the main body was the human head or the umbrella, it was still too early to tell. I'll try to use it. If it doesn't work, I'll think of a way to deal with it. Chapter 287. At the intersection, in front of the kiosk. Abel was the first to return after receiving the information about the store. Immediately after, Mia also came from the opposite side of the street with Lee. Mia's little face was puffed up, as if she had been wronged. "Are you okay, Mia, classmate?" Abel asked. "We didn't find anything, and we were even verbally insulted by some inferior people. Nicholas didn't allow me to cause trouble. Otherwise, I would have eaten those hooligans alive." While looking for the store, a group of lustful hooligans pestered the two of them. Not to mention that the two of them were extremely rare exotic beauties. Just Mia's long legs were enough to attract attention. Although the group of hooligans who tried to sow discord and even tried to reach out their hand were beaten up by Lee on the spot. But Mia was still angry. According to her personality, this kind of scum must be executed. Lee had been comforting her from the side. "Sister Mia, calm down. The people here seem to be equipped with a sophisticated mechanical device called a cell phone. The hooligan who was beaten up by me just now tried to use the cell phone to send a message to his companions. I feel that these things are quite useful. In case the magic circle and the clockwork device doesn't work, we can still use these things to establish contact." In the cloth bag in Lee's hand, there was a pile of cell phones found from the hooligans. Captain Abel was also unsure. "Okay, let's wait for Nicholas to come back. He seems to know a little. Also, I've already found the store. Mia, classmate, you don't have to worry about these small things. The people in this paradise don't seem like real people. Killing indiscriminately may cause trouble. I'm just very angry, and I want to find a place to vent. It's all because you took Nicholas away last night." In a fit of anger, Mia finally spoke out her inner thoughts. Abel didn't respond and could only laugh foolishly. Mia pouted, squatted on the fire hydrant by the road, and supported her chin with both hands. "Why isn't Nicholas back yet? He's not punctual at all." Just as Mia was complaining, the spider hair on her body suddenly stood up. "Danger alert!" Hiss, hiss, hiss. Several thin threads were spat out from Mia's mouth as she stared straight ahead. "Nicholas, what's going on?" Mia deliberately rubbed her eyes, thinking that she had seen wrongly. Because a large number of spider compound eyes can accept different wavelengths of light. Therefore, Mia could clearly see that Han Dong, who was walking out from the crowd, was carrying a strange red umbrella. On her shoulder, there was a pale and horrifying geisha head. The umbrella and the head both emitted a dangerous and fatal aura. If this kind of head was on Mia's body, she would definitely do everything in her power to get rid of it. Mia could not understand how Han Dong was able to coexist with such a terrifying entity. Could it be that Nicholas is being controlled? That's impossible. If he can be controlled by thoughts, I'm no match for him either. Meanwhile, Abel, who was leaning on the side of the newspaper stand, was on full alert. Owl's protection. A green light flashed in Abel's eyes. He also saw the horrifying head on Han Dong's shoulder and was also unable to understand. Only Wen Li, who did not have the ability to see, could not see anything. When she saw Han Dong return, Wen Li immediately went forward to greet him. Drip, drip, drip. A sticky tongue slowly grew out of the head's mouth and tried to lick Wen Li. Wen Li, stay 2 meters away from me. Okay. Wen Li looked depressed, thinking that she had done something wrong. Who knew that Han Dong was just deliberately observing? Sure enough, when the length of the tongue reached 8 meters, it automatically regarded the target as too far and retracted it back into the mouth. Did you guys find a shop? We found it. It's in an old residential building. However, it seems that another group of prisoners also found it. Prisoners? Okay, let's hurry over. As for the umbrella behind me, we'll talk about it as we go. Okay. With Abel leading the way, the team quickly rushed to the shop. Because of Han Dong's words, Wen Li deliberately kept a distance of 2 meters. Sister Mia, did I do something wrong? See for yourself. There's something dirty on the vice captain. Don't get close. Something dirty. Wen Li quickly realized what her master had said. There were some terrifying things that could not be seen by the naked eye in the Destiny space. She put on the goggles. The pale and scary Gogi head happened to be staring at Wen Li. Saliva kept dripping from the corner of her mouth like rain. It seemed that she wanted to eat Wen Li. Ah, people, heads. Wen Li was immediately scared and hid behind Mia. At the same time, Han Dong also explained the origin of the head on his shoulder. When he talked about how ghost stories could be activated without clues, he used English. The head could not understand. Is it too dangerous? Every time Abel saw the head that was completely rooted on Han Dong's shoulder, the white hair on his body would slightly flutter. Risk and benefit coexist. This thing seems to be very afraid of chaotic equipment. In this regard, I'm still very confident, as long as I maintain this state for 24 hours. Although it was clear that Han Dong was different. But such a bold approach, Abel was really impressed. By the way, Abel, you just said that when you found the shop, the Death Row team also came to the door. Did they find you? In theory, they shouldn't be found, unless they have amazing perception. I have a plan. The building where the shop was located corresponded to an old street. Compared to the pedestrian street from before, this place was obviously a lot quieter. Moreover, most of the people walking on this street were old people. Han Dong, who carried a red umbrella, walked alone on this street, extra conspicuous. As for Abel, Wen Li, and Mia, the 3 of them were arranged to carry out a secret operation on the roof. First, they had to determine the nature of the death row prisoners. In the end, they were just a group of ordinary people or extraordinary individuals that could threaten Han Dong and others. According to Abel, the shop was located on the 5th floor. As he walked up the old and dirty stairs, he walked up. When Han Dong walked to the 4th floor, the corridor in front of him was completely blocked by a burly man with short blonde hair. The polo shirt on his body looked like it could burst at any time. The black-tipped leather shoes on his feet were a full-size 50. Such a physique was obviously a bit exaggerated. I saw you on the train. I remember that there were 2 beautiful foreign girls in your teammates. Where are they? When talking about Wen Li and Mia, the prisoner was very excited. What about your teammates? Han Dong asked back. Boss, let me test your ability. You're really brave, daring to go to the shop alone. I'll break your hands and feet first and bring you to the boss. I hope to lure the 2 beautiful girls out through you. My name is Ivanov. I'm from Russia's Black Dolphin prison. I still like a little boy like you. Boom. 1 foot stepped out. The size 50 huge leather shoes directly broke the reinforced concrete stairs and pounced on Han Dong with open arms. Chapter 288. G-Virus Enhancement. Little Magic, 30% effect. Dynamic Vision Enhancement. Han Dong, who was standing at the entrance of the corridor, took a step back. His back was against the wall, and he happened to avoid the death row prisoner's bare hug. But Han Dong, who had clearly avoided the attack, had a drop of cold sweat slide down his cheek. This doesn't feel right. What's wrong with this person? Han Dong put his hands on the wall behind him. He didn't have the intention to take the initiative to attack. Instead, he prepared to dodge again. The bear hug missed. Under normal circumstances, it should be difficult to stop immediately because of the forward momentum and the huge body. However, the situation was a bit wrong. Ivanov had a smile on his face. The moment the bear hug missed, he clenched his right hand into a fist. Through a kind of body technique that had been honed for a long time, the inertia of the forward momentum was transferred to the arm through the connection of the foot muscles and the waist muscles. There was no delay at all. Cannon fist. The airflow spread out on both sides of his thick arm. Boom! A huge hole was smashed in the reinforced concrete wall. The steel bar hidden inside the wall was actually broken by this punch. So flexible. The golden-haired Russian prisoner, Ivanov, saw that his chain of attacks still didn't hit. He looked at Han Dong, who had already hidden on the next floor, and showed a rather interesting smile. On the other hand, Han Dong sighed. His face didn't look good. Sweat kept dripping down from his temples. Han Dong was the main character of the battle just now. No one could directly experience what Han Dong felt. Han Dong had almost never experienced this kind of feeling. All along, Han Dong used the monsters in the Destiny realm to hone his fighting skills, or the polluted life outside the city. Of course, he also exchanged pointers with little brother Demps and Mia, but the two of them were not fighters. On the other hand, the battle in the corridor just now, on the level of strength, there is no doubt that Ivanov's strength was very terrifying, but his strength was definitely not comparable to the great Lord of Stewart. But the battle just now made Han Dong feel that he could be killed at any time. It wasn't just a matter of strength. There were other factors that made Han Dong rather uncomfortable. Even though Han Dong had a lot of tricks up his sleeves, he did not want to use too many of his trump cards against a death row prisoner in the early stages of the Fate event. His main goal was to obtain information. Han Dong wanted to know whether these death row inmates were there to indirectly show the power of the ghost stories, or they themselves had the power to solve the ghost stories. Now it seemed that it was indeed the latter. The cards of Fate increased the difficulty of the original event, and gave the death row inmates such strength. In that split second, the forward thrust, the retreat, and the punch were all done in one go. It was similar to some kind of fighting technique, and it was quite mature. This guy was someone who had crawled out from the bottom of the prison. His moves were all against people. He's different from all the opponents I've faced so far. These fellows live to kill. Once I'm caught, I'll definitely die if I don't use extreme measures. That was right. Person to person. These death row convicts that were designed by the system were a group of top-notch killers who had the ability to deal with people. Once they were caught, they would instantly be killed by various against-people moves. This should be one of Han Dong's blind spots. After all, the knights in the sacred city mainly needed to deal with the life outside the city. Even though I have the G-virus to support my body, strengthen my right arm, and little magic, I to see the enemy's attack pattern. But in terms of fighting, I'm a complete newbie. Plus, the space in the corridor is small. There's no extra space to dodge. Let's get out of here first. Han Dong activated the Griffin boots and tried to go down the stairs as fast as he could. Who knew? Boom! The corridor above his head was crushed by Ivanov's foot. As the cement continued to fall, his huge body that could fill up the corridor suddenly fell. Little one, where do you think you're going? Uncle still wants to do something interesting with you. Can't escape. If that's the case, Han Dong took a step back, 6 steps away from Ivanov, and extended his right arm. His arm had already merged with the plague doctor's short knife. From the meaty mouth and the palm of his hand, strong plague energy shot out and attacked the opponent directly. If an ordinary person was shrouded in the impact of this plague, their body would only be left with a pool of fungus and skeletons in a short time. But something that didn't make sense happened. Ivanov turned his body sideways. He used his muscular back to resist the impact of the plague. When his coat came into contact with the plague, it was immediately eroded and destroyed. But the plague couldn't cause any deep damage to Ivanov's body. It could only cause some light, superficial wounds. He forcefully ignored the plague. Going against the impact of the energy, he grabbed Han Dong's right hand that shot out the plague. "Finally, I've caught you," Ivanov said with a joyful expression. He immediately used a fighting technique. Even though Han Dong's G-arm strength was not weak at all, but his skillful strength instantly broke all of his fingers, broke his wrist, and caused his elbow to be completely dislocated. He thought the battle was over, but the situation that followed was a bit strange, as if time had stopped. The two hands that were holding each other didn't separate for a long time. Logically speaking, Ivanov should continue to destroy Han Dong's other limbs. After a while, dark gray veins followed along Ivanov's arm and quickly reached his head area. Pollution invasion. Their palms were facing each other. Even if he used a tentacle attack at zero distance, it wouldn't be seen. But Han Dong didn't feel very comfortable in his heart, as he was forced to use his killer move at the beginning of the battle. This fate event was a bit too rare. Pollution invasion. Extremely serious, crazy hallucinations eroded Ivanov's brain. A pale yellow liquid kept flowing out from his nostrils and ears, and a pattern with spots appeared in various areas of his body. But Ivanov's other hand could still clench into a fist while trembling, and his instinct drove him to continue to attack. His will to fight is too strong. It's too difficult. Remove the fusion. Han Dong held the plague dagger in his left hand, ready to end the battle with one sword. A voice came from the side of his face. Let me do it." The geisha's head on his shoulder had already spat out a long gray tongue made of rainwater from its mouth. The tongue drilled into Ivanov's mouth. His body was constantly filled with a strange kind of rainwater. As the rainwater poured in, a white thread of essence was constantly drawn into the tongue. Essence absorption, intracranial pollution. Ivanov's whole body was limp on the ground. Even if he could barely rely on his strong body to survive, he would be in a vegetative state, and his consciousness would be imprisoned in the border of madness forever. The geisha's head was extremely excited. "Wow, what does this smell? Quick, quick, give me 2 more similar humans. I can consider sparing your life." Han Dong immediately responded, "I'll try to get 3 at the same time. Tell me something, okay?" Chapter 289. Old Building Shop. A man who was permanently blind in both eyes spent 3 ghost stories points to exchange for a katana from the shop. Not long after he received the katana from the boss, his ears seemed to have heard something. Ivanov lost in a one-on-one battle. Even if Ivanov, who is proficient in sambo, is weaker than his opponent, he shouldn't have lost so quickly and completely lost his mobility. We seem to have encountered a tough opponent since the beginning. On the surface, only one person has come to the old building, but in reality, there are 3 people hiding in the dark. The leader of this group of death row prisoners had an almost insane sense of hearing. He seemed to be able to hear everything. Bring out your tricks. Take advantage of the fact that the young man downstairs hasn't recovered yet and quickly deal with him. It doesn't matter if he's dead or alive. Just weaken the enemy's combat ability. As for the 3 people hiding in the dark, I'll keep an eye on them. Okay. Han Dong stared at his opponent, who was now in a vegetative state. He quickly took out an exquisite syringe with pure gold patterns and extracted the cell essence. Death row prisoner, Ivanov. Han Dong planned to find some free time to study this guy's cell structure through the laboratory equipment. The series of abilities that Ivanov had just displayed, not to mention his fighting skills, his physical abilities were completely beyond that of normal persons. It felt like he was in the world of the fighting anime Blade Fangs and fighting with various fighting monsters. This kind of fighting monster, if Han Dong did not use any special skills, it would be extremely difficult to deal with. Using his hidden vision, Han Dong sensed that another death row prisoner had arrived. They're here. 1? No, they're hiding their presence. There are 2. Just as Han Dong's attention was attracted by the sound of footsteps upstairs, boom. The door of the apartment on the side was kicked open. The thick anti-theft door slammed heavily into Han Dong's body. Then, A hand that was longer than a normal person's suddenly reached out from behind the anti-theft door and grabbed Han Dong's neck, lifting him into the air. Strange. Ivanov was defeated by someone like you? Looks like you have some special tricks up your sleeve, right? The person holding Han Dong was also a death row inmate from the Russian prison. The difference between Ivanov and Ivanov was that this person's body wasn't that strong, but his limbs were surprisingly long. His rough face gave people the feeling of an ape-man. At the same time, a Russian man, who was obviously smaller than Ivanov, walked down the stairs. He was holding 2 claws in his hands, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. "Apushi, do it," Boss said, not to leave him alive. "This kid is a little strange." "Got it." The long-limbed death row prisoner, Apuxi, took out an axe from his waist and chopped down at Han Dong's head. At the critical moment, a white figure flashed past. One claw, a kick, ding. Sparks flew everywhere. The axe that was about to fall on Han Dong's head collided with the claw from the side. A surge of inner strength flowed along the handle of the axe, forcing it to fly out of his hand. Apuxi, the long-limbed death row inmate, was shocked and immediately raised his arms to block in front of him. Ha! He blocked the side kick head-on, but the force caused him to take 3 steps back. A very obvious outline of a wolf's foot was branded on the surface of his arm, and some blood dripped to the ground. "Oh, didn't Boss say that he was going to block the 3 people in the dark? Why did he let one of them here?" Apuxi stared at the white-haired young man who suddenly appeared in front of him. He didn't dare to be negligent and immediately got into a fighting stance. That's right. The one who arrived at the critical moment was Abel Ryan. Although he was held back by the eyeless death row inmate upstairs for a while, he still arrived on time to protect Han Dong. "Abel, these guys are proficient in all kinds of face-to-face techniques. They're different from the creatures and monsters we've encountered outside the city. Be careful. It's okay. I'm good at this too." Abel's white hair had grown to the back of his neck, and the white gas covering his body faintly showed 2 virtual images of a white wolf and a giant bear. When it came to face-to-face, Abel wasn't bad at all. Abel received one-on-one training every day, and what he experienced the most was actual combat. The members of the Behemoth Knights didn't like to talk about theories. They prefer to use combat to teach directly. During the first few months of Abel's enrollment, he studied almost every day. His face would swell up, and his body would be broken in many places. Sometimes he could only rest in the nearby stable and use his unique 100-beast physique to quickly heal his body. When he sparred with the teachers, it was limited to not killing Abel. They would never show mercy. Breaking bones and piercing bodies were normal situations. Although Abel couldn't speak of his suffering, he still persevered and trained his combat skills. He was proficient in face-to-face combat techniques. "Ha! You have such skills at such a young age. You should be trained by some assassin organization. Unfortunately, you haven't lived long enough and lack experience. For example, once you establish an advantage, don't give the enemy a chance to breathe." Apuxi, who had unusually long limbs, suddenly took out 2 hand axes from behind him and threw them at Abel with a unique throwing technique. The trajectory of the spinning flying axes was very strange. It forced Abel to twist his body to dodge, and he also needed to block it head-on. Swoosh! A cut mark that was neither deep nor shallow appeared on the back of his right hand. Just as Abel was focused on dodging the hand axes, the death row prisoner, Turgenev, who was standing in the corridor and holding a claw knife with both hands, moved. The 2 death row prisoners closed in and formed a pincer attack, targeting Abel's fatal points. What a strong killing intent. It did feel a little different. When Abel sparred with the night teacher, he didn't feel such killing intent, and he didn't face fatal attacks. But for beasts, the situation was the same. In other words, who was the prey and who was the hunter? White fur floated on the surface of Abel's body. Wolf shadow coupled with beast perception, he dodged at high speed. On top of the original foundation, it actually produced some interference illusions. With incredible movements, he dodged the pincer attack from the two death row prisoners. At the same time, he counterattacked fiercely. Swoosh! Blood splattered on the spot. The claw knife fell to the ground. The meridians in the wrist of the death row prisoner, Turgenev, were completely cut off by Abel, and he lost the ability to hold a weapon. He could only temporarily retreat to stop the bleeding. One death row prisoner's attack was gone. Abel, who was greatly relieved, jumped up and grabbed the collar of the prisoner, a puxy, with one hand. Force palm, the shadow of a giant bear appeared behind him. 3 consecutive palm strikes landed on the death row prisoner's head. Several cracks appeared on his skull. His eyeballs were bloodshot. He had a severe concussion. After falling to the ground, a puxy tried to support his body several times, but he slipped again. This was the close combat strength of 100 Beast Abel, who was known as the strongest among this batch of trainee knights. Chapter 290. The bandage stopped the bleeding. The prisoner who used the claw blade used his mouth to forcefully wrap the claw blade around his palm and was about to continue attacking. A chill came. Babble. He was so focused that he completely forgot about the existence of a person. The tentacles connected to the back of his head, and he instantly lost control of his body. Then a wet tongue slid up his cheek and went into his mouth. Absorbing essence. Han Dong could faintly feel that with the absorption of essence, the woman's head and the red umbrella were growing. The ghost story itself was strengthening. After a while, another vegetative person was born. Hurry, there's another one in front. Good chance. Let me eat. Let me eat more. I promise to let you go. I won't lie. Okay, Abel, let me do it. Han Dong signaled for Abel to step back temporarily and let him deal with the prisoner with severe concussion. Watching the whole process, Abel frowned a little. He felt a little uncomfortable, but he believed in Han Dong's way of doing things. There was nothing wrong with that. Gurgle, gurgle. As the essence was consumed, even the red umbrella was slightly wriggling. The female head was satisfied. The battle was not over yet. Han Dong turned his head and asked, Abel, there's another prisoner on death row, right? Yes, I'll have when Li and Mia stall him. I'll come down to help you. Let's go up and take a look. With their practice, it should be enough to deal with the enemy. The meal was finished. Han Dong and Abel immediately rushed upstairs. When they approached the 5th floor where the shop was located, a large amount of cut spider silk was scattered in the corridor. What's going on? The situation was different from what they expected. Mia was grinding herbs in the corridor and gently applying them on Wen Li's body. During the training, Wen Li, who could take the attack of the senior's giant axe with her bare hands, was injured. There were 3 blade wounds on her body. Han Dong was very clear about Wen Li's level. If she really went crazy, even Abel might not be able to stop her. Not to mention, Mia's fighting power was not a joke. However, not only did the 2 of them fail to stop the other party, they were also injured instead. What happened? Mia hurriedly explained. This 5-star difficulty is a little too much. The blind man's swordsmanship was exquisite. Every slash was able to find a weak point and fatal point. My spider silk couldn't block it. Plus, the corridor was too narrow, so my movements were limited. I couldn't find a way to deal with him. Wen Li took the risk of injuring herself and broke that person's arm with a single punch. At the same time, that person was also poisoned by my spider's venom. At the rate he fled, the venom would have spread all over his body in a short period of time. He shouldn't be able to live for long. He stared at the large number of sharp knife marks left in the corridor, and Wen Li's expression as she gritted her teeth to endure the pain. Han Dong nodded. Indeed, these death row inmates all have inhuman powers and are good at dealing with people. If we allow them to deal with ghost stories to gain points and exchange them for extremely powerful items, we might be in danger. In the future, during the operation, we must do a thorough investigation beforehand. Take a look at the store first. I'll deal with this matter. Han Dong pointed at the red umbrella on his back and went to the top floor alone. Congratulations, young man. Based on the promise between us, I won't kill you. On the rooftop, The geisha's head automatically separated from Han Dong's shoulder. When the umbrella opened, a dark cloud immediately formed in the sky above this old building. It was raining here and there. The geisha in the kimono held the red umbrella and stared at Han Dong, making a very polite gesture of welcome. Welcome to paradise. You're much more interesting than the outsiders who have entered this place before. Perhaps we'll have a chance to meet again in the future. Oh, you know the setting of paradise? Of course, but I don't mind. As long as there's someone to hold the umbrella for me on rainy days, I'll be satisfied. It doesn't matter where it is. Han Dong took the opportunity to ask. Even though I wasn't able to capture a third person for you, I wonder if you can tell me more about paradise. For example, is there a certain organization or some ghost stories that I need to pay attention to? When Han Dong tried to ask, the geisha turned her head away. Information. If I speak nonsense, I'll be killed by Master. There are many secrets in paradise that you can't imagine. Live well. I hope you'll die in Master's hands. Ha ha ha. In the blink of an eye, the geisha hummed an old local tune. She stepped on the wooden clogs and danced lightly as she slowly retreated. She fell from the edge of the roof and disappeared. At the same time, Han Dong received the system announcement. Grade B Ghost Stories, Red Umbrella completed. Completion method, completed requirement. Help Rain Girl Red consume the essence of 3 high-level individuals. Reward, 18 Ghost Stories points, 15 base plus 3 quick completion. Han Dong thought back to the words of the geisha. Master, looks like humans have gathered all the ghost stories in one area and have formed a related organization. The strength of the prisoners and the creepiness of the ghost stories do match the 5-star difficulty rating. I'm afraid there's a huge danger that I can't predict currently hidden in this paradise. To be able to understand the strength of the prisoners, confirm the location of the shop, and obtain a certain amount of ghost stories points, this is a good start. Let's go take a look at the shop. Seeing the red umbrella disappear, Abel asked, The ghost story is complete. Obtained 18 ghost stories points. Abel immediately gave him a thumbs up. The starting point was only 5 points. With an extra 18 points, the progress would be much faster. Han Dong walked down the stairs with a smile. His small fist lightly tapped on Abel's arm. I have to thank you, Abel. If not for you, I would have been in danger. When Abel smiled, the white fur on his body fluttered. So this is the shop. Dong, dong, dong. He knocked on the door. The old wooden door slowly opened a gap. A decayed arm reached out from the gap. The fingernails were filled with dirt. It felt like it had just crawled out from a grave. It waved its frozen finger and signaled for Han Dong's group to enter. I thought the shop was a supply station set up by humans in paradise. It would be very high-tech, but I didn't expect it to be like this. When the door was pushed open, a familiar smell hit them. It was similar to the smell of a graveyard. Inside the old and cracked room, there were many cupboards, there were many kinds of products stored there. The shop owner was an old man in tattered clothes with white bones peeking out from his limbs. He was sitting before the counter. He lightly rang the bell to signal for Han Dong's group, who were here for the first time, to come over. The shop owner seemed to have something to say. Chapter 291. Spatial technology? Han Dong's attention to detail allowed him to discover the problem with the size of the store. The shop's design and actual size did not match the old building. The interior space was much larger. The current technology level has already reached this level, or is it only limited to shops? Ring, ring, ring. The shop owner rang the bell. Han Dong's group came to the counter first. Due to the large hole in the shop owner's chin, he could only make the word aha when he spoke. Here, they would call the shop owner Mr. Aha. The strange thing was, Han Dong's group could understand the meaning of aha in different tones. This might be related to the Destiny space. The translation was as follows. Aha, dear guests, as long as you have enough points, you can buy anything with a price tag in my shop. Since this is your first time in the theme park, let me briefly introduce the shop. First, all the shops in the theme park are owned by me, Mr. You can find my shops in different districts. All the prices are the same because I'm the only boss. Han Dong made a thoughtful expression. Mr. Ha pulled out a thick book covered in dust from somewhere. He flipped to the table of contents and explained the basic categories. The items I sell here are roughly divided into 5 categories. 1. Clues. It can directly provide you with the basic information of the ghost story, the place of appearance, and how to trigger it. After completing the requirements of the corresponding ghost story, you can get 5% to 30% of the points. Of course, depending on how you deal with it, you can get additional information. 2. Spiritual items. Most physical attacks cannot harm the ghost story itself. To allow you to live longer, these spirit tools can allow you to directly harm the ghost stories or even kill them completely. The higher the level of the spiritual item, the higher the price. If you think you can deal with the ghost story, there is no need to buy it. 3. Living creatures. When I am free, I will go out to pick up trash. Sometimes, I will find weak ghost stories in the trash. I, Mr. Aha, am very kind, so I can only pick them up and keep them in containers. Once you spend money to buy them, they will become your slaves at your disposal. Don't try to get them to deal with other ghost stories. They were picked up from the trash can because they were no match for other ghost stories. 4. Pass. The theme park is not as simple as you think. There are strict divisions inside. If you don't have a pass, you outsiders can only move about in your current area. If one wanted to go to other areas, a pass was a must. 5. Miscellaneous. There's no need to introduce them in detail. All the miscellaneous items are stored in the utility room. Some may be useful to you, but some may even bring you unexpected danger. If you come across some weird ghost stories and need you to collect something, you can come to the storage room to look for it. Perhaps you'll find something. Mr. Aha gave a more detailed explanation. Excuse me, sir. Do you have the layout of the park? Yes. However, I suggest that you accumulate enough points before exchanging them together. The blueprint costs 10 points, and each pass costs 10 points. Prepare 50 points before you think about going to other areas. All right. Han Dong, who currently had 18 ghost stories points, had to figure out how to use them. To deal with these spirits that were hard to capture with the naked eye, Han Dong's tentacle power could deal direct damage, and so could Mia's curse power. However, Abel and Wen Li, who were more physical attacks, would need to equip themselves with the spirit tools sold in the shop. Unexpectedly, Wen Li immediately waved her hands and refused. I don't need it. The blacksmith hammer given to me by my master can break anything. Points are very precious, so I'll use them to exchange for equipment for Captain Abel. At the same time, Abel also said that there was no need. My fate equipment and bee spirits can also harm spirit bodies. Nicholas, use all of your points to exchange for clues. We need to accumulate enough ghost story points so that we can end this fate event as soon as possible. I have a feeling that the longer we stay in this theme park, the more dangerous it will be for us. Han Dong had his own idea. Since the shop sells items to deal with ghost stories, there must be a reason for it. We'd better equip ourselves with one. At this moment, Mia's voice came from the side. I want this. Mia was standing in front of a shelf, holding a tachi with a ghost face carved on its scabbard. It was surrounded by a unique curse aura. You know how to use this weapon? Don't look down on me. I just haven't been able to get my hands on a destiny weapon. Boss, can you get a try? Shing. The blade was unsheathed. The surface of the blade was covered with a faint black aura. In an instant, Mia's curse power connected with the blade. Chop. Pull back into the scabbard. The action was done in one go. Mia made a funny face. How is it? I didn't lie to you. If there was a decent destiny equipment in the previous spar, I wouldn't have lost to you so easily. Han Dong was also surprised. He didn't expect Mia to have such an ability. Boss, this thing should be very expensive, right? Now that's interesting. The item that you want, it's a spirit tool, but it's also a clue. If you can complete its corresponding ghost story, you only need to pay me an extra 10 points, and it will belong to you. If you accidentally lose this spirit tool when dealing with the ghost story, you have to pay me 100 points. I want this. When Han Dong was thinking, Mia kept pulling Han Dong's arm. However, in terms of value, this cursed blade had to be related to a difficult ghost story. Not to mention the danger. Just as the shop owner said, if they encountered the owner of this cursed blade during the mission and it was taken away, Han Dong and the others would face a debt of 100 points. The perfect start would immediately become a hellish start. Also, even if they could solve the ghost story, they still needed to pay 10 points to obtain this item. Whether it was worth it or not, this was the key question Han Dong had to consider. Aha, mister. Can you show us the corresponding clue? I can't. If you want to see the clue, you have to pay the corresponding amount of points. The ghost story that this cursed blade corresponds to is not simple. The difficulty level is relatively high. You have to pay me 10 points in advance before you can see the clue. By the way, this cursed blade is indeed very suitable for women. Chapter 292. Mia stared at the strange demon blade and felt that her saliva was about to flow out. Nicholas, I really like this demon blade. Moreover, since it's an item from the Destiny world, there must be a way to bring it out. At most, I'll just have to spend some points. Last time in the Stewart Manor, it took me a lot of effort to control the mother. As long as I can get this demon blade, I will use all my skills to clear this Destiny event. Mia could clearly feel the true strength of this demon blade. Once she could get it, her future knight's path would be much smoother. Han Dong asked in a low voice, "Is this your request? We have just arrived at the paradise. If this matter is not handled properly, we will fall into a situation of eternal damnation. 100 points of debt will make us fall into the abyss." Request, request. Mia's face was full of grievances. Han Dong continued, "If you don't want to, I'll choose the safer way of increasing points." "Okay, I'll use request." Mia's face was bitter. In her mind, she had a big family with Nicholas and gave birth to a human-shaped spider baby. Okay, request has been used. Han Dong had one less restriction. Otherwise, if Mia thought of a request and pestered him to play on the bed every day, Han Dong would have a lot less time to study. Also, just like what Mia said, in the matter of obtaining the title deed, she did help Han Dong a lot. The shop owner suddenly said, "You definitely won't lose out on this deal. Let me give you some information privately. In this area, there is only one shop. The most valuable item is this demon blade that is a combination of clue and spirit tool. Its quality is enough for you to deal with some long history ghost stories. Moreover, this demon blade is the only one. It can't be sold in other shops. It's also impossible to give you an advance of 10 points and let you get it. If you give up the current opportunity, when the next team comes here, they will definitely buy this demon blade at all costs." "Okay, how do you pay?" "Stretch out your arm." Mr. Aha wiggled his muddy fingernails. Drops of rainwater and some red umbrella fabric were slowly drawn out from Han Dong's skin. "The Ghost Story 4 Rain Girl Red has already been completed? Not bad." After collecting the money, Mr. Aha came to the knife rack. Inside, there was a small drawer with a piece of paper inside. "Please look for a crooked tree that grows in a shallow pool in a dark and damp corner of the business district. Bring the demon blade with you, and you will encounter them. You must be prepared. I've already reminded you that this demonic blade is the most valuable item in this shop. If you want to obtain it, it's naturally not that simple. You might even have to pay a certain price." Han Dong didn't plan to use the remaining 8 points for the time being. He wanted to keep them as a backup, just in case. "Say goodbye to Mr. Aha." Mia held the bewitching blade and rubbed it against his face full of excitement. Han Dong put the clue away. As soon as he closed the door of the shop, Han Dong said in a low voice, "We've been tricked, huh? Tricked by the shop owner earlier?" Wenli immediately pretended to be angry, like she was going to break down the door to get revenge. "No, I mean, we've been tricked by the humans in the fate setting." "What do you mean?" Wenli tilted her head slightly, completely confused. "I thought it was weird from the beginning because the style of this shop is completely different from humans who have mastered advanced technology. Moreover, In the item book that Mr. Aha just showed, there was no escape pass that could be exchanged for 100 points as mentioned in the train's announcement. Furthermore, Mr. Aha isn't human. I'm 70% sure that the shop itself is a type of ghost story. It's all controlled by Mr. The humans in this world have no control over the theme park. They only found out about the shop from the previous batches of death row inmates. They thought that this was a relatively neutral shop that could be used to help the inmates investigate the theme park. Winley was shocked. She didn't think in that direction at all. Her idea was very simple. As long as they continued to solve the ghost stories and gain enough points, they could exchange for an escape pass from the shop and end this fate event perfectly. If it was a 2-star fate event, Han Dong might have really thought so. But this was a 5-star fate event. Han Dong already had his suspicions when he heard the announcement on the train. Wasn't a bit too easy. Now that he met Mr. Aha, he was even more certain. The most difficult point of this fate event, ghost stories. It was probably how to escape. To gain more ghost story points, they had to go deeper into the theme park. But the deeper they went, the harder it was to escape. If they couldn't solve this problem, Han Dong and the rest would be trapped here forever. Han Dong continued with his speculation. Humans have no way to control the theme park. In fact, to stabilize the theme park and ensure that the world wouldn't be affected, they even took the initiative to import androids into the theme park to build a complete city that the ghost stories were satisfied with. Then, through the death row policy, they selected the best death row inmates from all over the world and had them form a suicide squad to gather information about the theme park. The humans outside then used this information to try to stabilize this ghost stories theme park. If they don't control it well, this world might become like our world. Humans can only live in a small area, and those that wander outside the city are all kinds of ghost stories. You have a point. Abel nodded and agreed with Han Dong's speculation. Han Dong took a deep breath. In any case, we have to deal with the sword genius first. After increasing our combat power, we can slowly find the balance of the conflict. To be able to make a technologically advanced human society so fearful that they would spend everything to maintain the balance. The danger of the theme park itself is beyond our imagination. Therefore, even if it's a 5-star fate event, our ultimate goal is to escape and not to reveal the secrets of the theme park or for us to kill an ultimate boss. We have to try our best to get as many points as possible without venturing too deep and then leave this place. They returned to the main street. Knowing that the prisoners were all very powerful, the team no longer split up. They used various channels to gather information about the Crooked Tree. Most of the information had to be filtered out, but there was one piece of information that Han Dong felt was very important. It was rumored that in the forest behind an open-air hot spring hotel, there would occasionally be a crooked tree. Some people even heard women crying while they were bathing. Chapter 293. In a country like Dongying, one of the favorite things to do was to soak in hot springs. There were countless hot spring hotels. At first, Han Dong thought that he was going to a secluded hot spring hotel that no one went to. After all, there were rumors of ghosts there. Who knew? When the taxi arrived at the hostile hot spring that was built against the mountain, the taxi stopped. There were cars parked outside the hot spring hotel. Several waiters in kimonos were greeting guests at the door. They seemed to be too busy. "Sir, did you make a reservation in advance?" "No. If you didn't make a reservation in advance, all the rooms are full tonight." "I'm sorry." "Oh, then can we wait here? If someone checks out at the last minute, let us move in." The waiters replied awkwardly. "Sir, under normal circumstances, there won't be any sudden checkout. Walk down this mountain road or drive to Kirikawa, 7 kilometers away. There should be a good hot spring hotel. It's okay, let me wait. Maybe someone will check out later." At the same time, inside the hotel, a college couple walked in the bustling passageway, completely forgetting the horrible rumors about this hotel. However, just as they opened the door, a cold wind immediately brushed past their faces. "Strange, why didn't you close the window?" The cute girl took off her shoes and immediately ran to close the window. Creak! The closed window couldn't be locked. It seemed that something was stuck in the keyhole. Hirono, come and see what's wrong with the window. Let me see. The man turned on the light mode of his phone and looked at the keyhole. He was so scared that his face turned pale. Hair. Under the light, a large amount of hair was stuffed into the keyhole. It was even squirming slightly. This, just as the young couple was about to call the waiters to deal with it. The girl tilted her head and looked at the wardrobe mirror. The mirror happened to be facing the blind spot between the wardrobe and the wall in the room. A woman in red was standing close to the wardrobe, staring at the two through the mirror. A pair of red lips peeked through the gaps in her black hair. Hirono, there's a ghost. In less than 10 minutes, a pale-faced college couple hurriedly checked out. He left the inn as fast as he could at trot. The young couple just happened to pass by Han Dong, who was waiting at the door. Beside the window of the room they were staying in, a woman in red was waving her hand slightly. She wasn't trying to scare the couple, but was trying to signal to Han Dong that her request had been fulfilled. Sir, please come with me. Wow, this kind of room feels so good. Wen Li, who had grown up in the Holy City, felt a sense of novelty when she stayed in this Japanese-style room and temporarily forgot the danger of this operation. Similarly, Spider Mia's cheeks slowly turned rosy as she stared at the cozy room. Unknowingly, she had already imagined the scene of her and Han Dong together in this place. However, Mia still knew what was more important. Just as he placed the demon blade that was wrapped in cloth on the ground and prepared to set up a spider web barrier in the corner of the room, Buzz, the demonic blade that came into contact with the floor of the inn, trembled slightly, as if it had activated something. All of a sudden, the four of them were on full alert. His eyes were locked on every corner of the room in case of an enemy attack. 10 minutes passed, and there was nothing unusual. Mia released the little tarantula that shared her vision and crawled out of the window to investigate. She found that everything in the inn was normal. Is it normal? However, since the demon blade is reacting, it means that we've found the right place. What should we do next? Soak in the hot spring. In the open-air hot spring. The four of them leaned against each other and inevitably attracted the attention of others. Apart from Han Dong, who didn't have any special features, the other three attracted a lot of attention. Although Abel wasn't as handsome as Cass, his white hair that resembled wolf fur made him look very cute. Moreover, when Abel was soaking in this pure, natural hot spring, his acupuncture points were stimulated and many white hairs grew from his pores. Although they couldn't see clearly in the water, Han Dong, who was close to Abel, could clearly feel the silky, smooth texture of the hairs. As for the two girls who were wearing swimsuits, it was needless to say. It was rare to see such beautiful foreign girls, and some members of a certain organization who were soaking in the hot spring even had evil intentions. Seeing that the two girls' boyfriends weren't very strong, they immediately went forward to talk to them and even directly stretched out their perverted hands. Next, there was no need for Han Dong and Abel to make a move. Wen Li grabbed the man's perverted hand and threw it with a little force. A naked but flew directly into the gloomy forest, disappearing without a trace. Immediately afterward, Wen Li, who was completely immersed in the bath, slowly floated her upper body out of the water. In fact, she was very shy. After all, it was the first time she wore such a tight swimsuit. Staring at Wen Li's well-tempered muscles that didn't lose their beauty, all the outsiders who had bad intentions dispelled their evil intentions. Wow, it's so comfortable. Wen Li sank half of her head into the hot spring and blew bubbles for fun. Then, he thought of something and asked, "What's the matter? Deputy Captain, what do you mean by the android you mentioned at the entrance of the store? Wen Li, your perception isn't strong enough. Mia and Abel should have noticed it. The humans we saw in the paradise, although they behaved exactly like normal people, went to work normally, had their own families, had emotional changes, and encountered ghost stories and were killed, they were not real humans. Listening to Han Dong's conspiracy theory and staring at the people chatting and laughing in the hot spring, Wenli was so scared that her face turned pale. "Ah, Deputy Captain, you're scaring me again." The timid Wenli hugged Mia. "I'm not scaring you. This group of people always feel like something is missing. It's like..." Han Dong swallowed back some words that Wenli couldn't understand, such as gene cultivation and 3D printing. Suddenly, he remembered the human body refinement that he saw when he fought with Dimps. It's like the humans created through human body refinement. They lack some things that are necessary for real humans, but their existence stabilizes the paradise. Human body refinement. I heard Master mention it before. It seems to be a kind of alchemy that is listed as forbidden by the Holy City. Han Dong was slightly taken aback as well. He didn't expect that Dimps not only had connections with the outside of the city, but the technique he learned was also forbidden. "Mia, is there any reaction from the demon's sword?" Under Han Dong's orders, Mia carried the demon's sword with her through spider silk. "No. Do we need to go to the forest area to take a look?" But we didn't hear the rumored cry of a woman. "No. Let's continue to bathe." Han Dong observed everything silently in the dark. He felt that something was wrong. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.